Ugualmente. Okay, we're going to go. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Arlington County Planning Commission. I am Commissioner Tenley Peterson, Chair. Tonight, the Commission will discuss and vote on the following items: General Land Use GLUP Amendment Rezoning and Site Plan Amendment for Site Plan 220, 2500 Wilson Boulevard, and rezoning an ordinance to vacate for Site Plan 471, 1601 Fairfax Drive. Presenters and speakers joining the meeting through Microsoft Teams, please keep your phones and other electronic devices muted until you are called upon by the clerk. Please turn off any sound to any devices around you to minimize interference and keep your cameras off until the clerk announces your name to speak. When called upon, you must unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is in the meeting command bar at the top of your screen. The moderator nor the clerk have the ability to unmute your mic. Once you have spoken, please mute your mics and turn your cameras off. If you are dialing in by phone to join the meeting, press *6 to unmute. Public speakers will be called upon by the clerk at an assigned time. Pre-registration with email confirmation is required to speak at tonight's hearing. We are not able to accommodate additional speakers. All speakers, virtual and hybrid, will receive 2 minutes to comment as an individual. Only representatives of a county board appointed advisory group, committee, and/or commission will receive 3 minutes to comment. A timer will be displayed on the screen if speaking virtually, and speakers in person will follow the timer stationed on the podium. Audio of tonight's meeting is available via phone. If commissioners, presenters, or speakers lose internet connectivity, please reconnect by phone. However, if you are dialing in by phone and unable to see the screen, we will provide an audible 30-second warning to wrap up your comments. You will be muted when your time has expired. The meeting chat is active for presenters and commissioners who need technical assistance only. Please do not use the meeting chat for discussion, public comment, questions about agenda items, or requests for further information. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public testimony period. Tonight's meeting will be available for review through the YouTube platform. A link has been provided on the Planning Commission website 24 to 48 hours after the adjournment of the meeting. Although the meetings will no longer be a live broadcast, the meeting will be available for review with closed captioning on Comcast Xfinity channels 25 and 1073, Verizon Fios channels 39 and 40, 24 to 48 hours after the adjournment of the meeting. Lastly, this is a public forum. Tonight's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website via a link to YouTube as stated. All information associated with tonight's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act requirements. Madam Clerk, can you please call the first item?
Yes, thank you. Item number 1A, B, and C is GP-359-23-1, the General Land Use Plan. B, REZN 24-00005, a rezoning, and C, SPLA 24-00034, a site plan amendment, all for Site Plan 220. We have Emma Martin, our planning staff, to present this item this evening. Thank you.
I'll pull up my slides. All right, hello, I'm Emma Martin with the Department of Community Planning, Housing, and Development. I'll be presenting the 2500 Wilson items. My colleague Bryce Johnson from DES is here with me today. This project consists of a GLUP amendment, rezoning, and major site plan amendment to redevelop the site. The 1.42 acre site is located at 2500 Wilson Boulevard in the Clarendon Courthouse neighborhood. It consists of 10 parcels. The site is currently occupied by a 5-story office building that was constructed in 1986 with ground floor retail and retail equivalent uses. The site is bordered by Wilson Boulevard to the north, North Barton Street to the east, Clarendon Boulevard to the south, and North Cleveland Street to the west. The site is located 0.25 miles from the Courthouse Metro Station and 0.4 miles from the Clarendon Metro Station. The existing office building is set back approximately 108 feet from the sidewalk on Clarendon Boulevard. Within this setback area is elevated open space, a paver walkway, and a surface parking lot that also serves as the entrance and exit for the existing underground parking garage. The public art installation Invisible Forces by artist Jim Sanborn was installed in 1987 in the open space at the southwest corner of the site. The subject site is currently designated Low Office Apartment Hotel. Concurrent with this major site plan amendment, the applicant is requesting a GLUP amendment to change the site to Medium Office Apartment Hotel. Per the applicable GLUP study guidance for the site, medium office apartment hotel is an appropriate GLUP designation. The existing zoning is CO 1.5. The applicant is seeking a rezoning to the CO 2.5 zoning district, which is consistent with the proposed GLUP designation as well. In June 2022, TMG 2500 Wilson Boulevard LLC applied for a GLUP amendment with an associated rezoning. As the site in question has little specific guidance in the courthouse sector plan, staff initiated a special GLUP study which evaluates the appropriateness of the requested GLUP amendment and provides additional guidance for potential future redevelopment. For this GLUP study, an interdepartmental staff team initiated a public review process in conjunction with the LRPC, which consisted of representatives from the Clarendon Courthouse Civic Association, Lyon Village Citizens Association, as well as the Park and Recreation Commission. Community input gathered throughout the public review process, which included one LRPC meeting, informed the 2500 Wilson Special GLUP Study document. The study document summarizes staff's analysis and recommendations for potential redevelopment. The consensus was that given the guidance for the site outlined in the recently completed Courthouse West Special GLUP Study document, there was no need to conduct a Tier 2 review and that the Courthouse West study can inform further analysis of the 2500 Wilson block. In May 2023, the 2500 Wilson Special GLUP Study document was presented to the County Board along with the adoption of an RTA for future public hearings to consider the GLUP amendment from low to medium office apartment hotel. The 2500 Wilson Special GLUP Study staff report recommended that this project advance the site plan review phase in the near term using the guiding principles in the Courthouse West Special GLUP Study. The 2500 Wilson Special GLUP Study document outlines recommendations for building design, including guidance on setbacks, height, and tapering. While there's little specific guidance in the courthouse sector plan for this site, the courthouse sector plan addendum calls for higher density commercial / residential / mixed use for this area, but does not specify a particular GLUP or zoning designation. The courthouse sector area urban design analysis, shown on the left, examines the built environment at the time while focusing on the areas that need improvement, as well as the positive elements within that area that provide the basis for which future improvements could be built upon. The urban design analysis identifies the existing open space and a sculpture other feature on the subject site. The courthouse metro station area concept plan, shown on the right, was developed as a part of the sector plan to serve as the urban design framework for the courthouse area. The concept plan identifies open space / plaza / enhanced landscaping on the southern portion of the site. The applicant's proposed open space is in conformance with the location of this open space on the concept plan. The public review process for this site plan application included review by the SPRC. The SPRC for this project consisted of representatives from various commissions, adjacent civic associations, including Clarendon Courthouse and Lyon Village. At the beginning of the SPRC process, staff held an online engagement opportunity, which garnered 153 participants and 593 comments. From this, a summary was created and posted to the webpage. There were 2 SPRC meetings, one in March and one in April 2025, which was followed by another online engagement opportunity in May 2025, which was focused on the public open space, and that garnered 260 participants. Lastly, staff conducted our standard community outreach to relevant groups and promotion methods through various county channels. This brings us to our development proposal, and the applicant is proposing a 14-story building with 316 residential units, including 20 committed affordable units and approximately 14,032 square feet of ground floor retail and 6,505 square feet of open space. The applicant is proposing LEED Gold certification and zoning ordinance modifications for additional density, residential and retail parking, and compact parking, density exclusions, and setbacks. Now we'll get into analysis. Overall, staff finds the proposal is in conformance with the GLUP study guiding principles. The project adheres to a maximum height of 14 stories and incorporates setbacks on North Barton Street, Clarendon Boulevard, and Wilson Boulevards to ensure appropriate transitions within the surrounding context. It implements streetscape improvements, loading off North Cleveland Street, new bike lanes, and an upgraded bus stop along North Barton Street with a curb extension and below-grade parking to foster a pedestrian-friendly environment per the GLUP study's guidance. It also provides new trees, landscaping, green roofing, and a second-floor landscaped amenity terrace with 27% tree canopy coverage site-wide. In terms of policy conformance, as I mentioned, it commits to the creation of 20 CAF units, meets the GLUP study's guidance in terms of building height, uses fenestration, articulation, and setbacks to distinguish between a building top, middle, and base, and provides the recommended amount of open space with public art and a mix of green space and hardscape with native trees. In the original submission, the proposed height of the building was 16 stories. In response to feedback from the community staff and to be in conformance with the Courthouse West Special GLUP study, the applicant changed the building height to lower it to 14 stories. In response to feedback from the SPRC process and the open space online engagement, the applicant incorporated more flexibility in seating, reduced hardscape areas, and added more native planting and planters and increased tree canopy in the open space. In summary, the site plan is consistent with the GLUP study and advances several key goals and objectives of the county, including providing 20 CAFs at 60% AMI with 9 one-bedrooms and 11 two-bedrooms. The project provides streetscape improvements on Wilson, North Cleveland, Clarendon, and North Barton Street, as well as traffic signal improvements and a 5-foot wide bike lane on both sides of North Barton Street with a protected bike lane on the northbound lane. The project is participating in the Green Building Incentive Program and is committed to LEED Gold certification and will meet energy optimization performance, including Energy Star appliances and WaterSense fixtures and bird-friendly glass, as well as a portion of parking spaces with EV charging. Lastly, the applicant's meeting the GLUP study's recommendation in terms of amount and location of open space along Clarendon Boulevard, and they've committed to provide some on-site public art as recommended by the sector plan. The applicant's intention is to commission a piece by the artist of the current piece, Jim Sanborn, if possible. The base density for the site is 150 units. The applicant is seeking 148 units in additional density from the zoning ordinance section 15.5.9 and with the GLUP amendment, as well as 18 units in green building additional density for a total of 316 units. In addition to keeping an updated project page, staff followed the typical outreach procedures for rezonings, GLUP amendments, and site plans, including informing Civic and Condo Association about the proposals. We also sent letters to adjacent property owners and notified Joint Base Fort Myer Henderson Hall. There was one initial online engagement opportunity that opened in January, ending in February, and it was followed by those 2 SPRC meetings and the second online engagement opportunity in May. The Transportation Commission reviewed this request at its August 28th meeting and recommended unanimous approval 10-0, and this will go to Housing Commission tomorrow night and the County Board next weekend. The Site Plan Review Committee roster included various commissions and committees listed on the screen in the Clarendon Courthouse Civic Association and Lyon Village Citizens Associations, as well as the Charleston Condos. Clarendon Courthouse and Lyon Village did participate in both SPRC meetings, and we did receive correspondence from both organizations. The Charleston Condo Association didn't respond. Some topics discussed at the SPRC meeting included building height, design, and open space. And staff finds this project is generally consistent with the applicable policy and plans accepted or adopted by the county board. Therefore, staff recommends adoption of the GLUP amendment, rezoning, and site plan amendment.
Thank you very much. And does the applicant have a presentation?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair, members of the commission. My name is Ken Whitmore. I'm a land use and zoning attorney with Venable LLP, and we're excited to bring you the application for 2500 Wilson Boulevard. I'll ask if Ms. Martin wouldn't mind sharing our presentation. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Dan Glavin at TMG to introduce the project.
Thank you, Ken. My name is Dan Glavin, and I work on the development team at TMG. Formerly known as the Meridian Group. We are the owner of the existing office building and applicant for tonight's major site plan amendment as well as rezoning, and we're excited to be here with you all tonight. Next slide, please. As you may know, based on your familiarity with the site, this project is located in an urban village known as Courthouse. It's in the RB corridor and happens to have an office building of approximately 100,000 square feet. Today, it's 5 stories tall, but we view this opportunity as one that happens to be a premier residential development opportunity as well. It's about halfway between both the courthouse and Clarendon Metro stops, so plenty of access to public transit as well as all the lifestyle amenities that are available within the Roslyn-Ballston corridor as well. Next slide. Looking at the site a little bit more closely, it's, as Emma described, it's bounded by North Barton Street, Wilson Boulevard, North Cleveland Street, as well as Clarendon Boulevard. And a couple of key things related to the existing improvements on the site. As she also described, there's open space that is located on the southern half of the site that ultimately ended up being kind of a key component of our development proposal. We'd like to replace and enhance that open space based on what's there today, as well as the existing below grade parking. That open space is elevated from the sidewalk, which we view as a suboptimal condition because it feels private and it feels like green space that's really dedicated to the office tenants that are located there, as opposed to a welcoming gathering space for the community. Next slide. These are some pictures from the existing improvements as well. We'll kind of walk through the building quickly, and we can also flip to the next slide here to talk about some of the existing conditions. As mentioned, the open space has been a point of interest for us as part of this redevelopment. We certainly got feedback from not only the county, but also the community around replacing that open space. The other thing worth noting about the office space that exists there today is the public art on site that you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. We had numerous discussions with the existing artist, Jim Sanborn, around the opportunity to reincorporate some of the existing piece into the future open space, and that's an opportunity that he's very excited about. Next slide, please. As it relates to the existing design that we're proposing today, the building is 14 stories tall. We're proposing 316 residential units. We're proud of designing a fully activated streetscape on all 4 sides. We're fortunate that we control the entirety of the block here today. And so we have located strategically the 14,000 square feet of retail adjacent to that open space that I'll touch on later in the presentation, as well as some residential amenities and lobby featured on the ground floor that will be accessed both off North Barton Street as well as Wilson Boulevard. And we also have 6 residential units that are accessed off of Wilson Boulevard. In terms of parking, we have 2 levels of below grade parking with 156 total parking spaces. The residential ratio ends up being 0.42 spaces per unit. We think that will help encourage our residents to use public transit in this very transit-rich neighborhood. And we're also proud that we have more bike parking on site than we do vehicular parking. Diving into kind of our overall design thesis and holistic approach to development here, we started from a place of what would it look like if we maximize density on site. We're particularly interested in providing housing in a location that desperately needs it. And so on the left-hand side of the screen, putting all things aside, design oriented, we just wanted to look at what it would look like if we maximize density up to the 16 stories allowed by the CO 2.5 zoning district. Clearly that left a lot to be desired. And so we started to think about the hierarchy of design decisions that we could make from there. And clearly carving the building on the southern half of the site so that we could locate and replace that open space was one of the key priorities. Following that, we wanted to make sure we responded to the existing context in the neighborhood. Although the adjacent parcels on all 4 sides have not been redeveloped recently, it's possible that will change in coming years. And we were particularly aware or cognizant of the fact that any sort of development that we propose on the site today would be a taller building than what exists there today. And so we carved the northern half of the building so that it steps back significantly from Wilson Boulevard.
If you're joining us online, please mute yourself. We can hear someone talking. Thank you.
That's okay. We think from a design standpoint, it makes sense to concentrate density in the center of the block anyway. But as a byproduct of that decision, we think we'll also cast less of a shadow on the neighborhood to the north of us. Next slide, please. So in terms of the overall design approach and the ultimate architecture, as Emma described, we had multiple points of feedback, both formally and informally, with both the county and the community. I think I can genuinely say that we have a better project because of that feedback. And so what you're looking at here today is the 14-story version of the building. We had started at 16. We've changed the massing so that ultimately it works within a 14-story structure and has some of those significant step backs that kind of follow the overall design philosophy within projects that we've seen in the neighborhood, where there's a distinct base, middle, and top part of the building. Next slide, please. This is just a zoomed in view of that Barton and Wilson Boulevard frontage. We think ultimately this adds, because of the step backs that we've designed, it adds a pedestrian scale to the overall streetscape. And given what exists there today, it's a huge net positive. We have eliminated the loading and parking entrances that are located separately on Barton and Cleveland currently, so that they're concentrated on Cleveland, and overall enhances the streetscape for our, not only our neighbors, but also visitors to the retail. Looking from the southwest corner of the site, this is from the perspective of Cleveland Street as well as Clarendon Boulevard. As I mentioned previously, walking by the site today, that open space is elevated from the sidewalk. So we're really proud that that open space in the future condition is flush with the sidewalk and ultimately makes it more inviting for visitors and neighbors alike. Next slide. Last, this is the perspective from North Barton and Clarendon Boulevard. That's all for this. Next slide, please. And then on to the open space. So just kind of zooming out, we have 6,500 square feet of open space located on the southern half of the site. We'll go ahead to the next slide as well. From this perspective, I just want to highlight that we've really strategically engaged not only retail consultants, but also our whole architecture and engineering team to think about how retail can be successful here. Although I think it's an A+ location, it is a bit of an in-between site when you think about the energy and density specifically located around the Courthouse Metro and the Clarendon Metro. So plenty of retail and lifestyle amenities at the Crossing Clarendon, but because we're kind of that in-betweener site, we want retail to be successful here. And so we've located it all along the open space. And we've added greenery where possible, but we're trying to also prioritize for the ability for pedestrians to flow freely through that open space to ultimately engage with the retailers. Last but not least, this is the perspective from Clarendon Boulevard and North Barton Street. So just kind of the opposite perspective of the open space. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to kick it off to Ket.
Great, thanks, Dan. And we'll move quickly through here in the interest of time. We can skip this slide. Why don't we move forward again? I think we've discussed this. One more, please. One thing I want to point out here is that, as Dan mentioned, this property does have public road frontage on 4 sides, so it leads to a large number of traffic improvements throughout. In particular, on the northeast and the southeast sides, there are off-site transportation improvements. If the chair will indulge me, I'll be done in less than a minute.
Okay, 1 minute.
Thank you. That are part of our community benefits package. On the next slide, you can see the details of these off-site transportation improvements. Again, not part of the typical site plan improvements, but rather part of our community benefits package as off-site nearby improvements. The next slide here is a quick discussion of community benefits. We're very proud of the package that we've put together. Mr. Glavin and Ms. Martin referenced it, but we are providing a significant amount of open space. Not only are we providing that open space, we're going to be upgrading it in a significant way, and we will be commissioning potentially a new piece of public art to replace the existing obelisk. We have been in touch with Mr. Sanborn about that. I mentioned previously those transportation improvements. Those are approximately $1.5 million in total. As was mentioned, we are participating in the GVIP and achieving LEED Gold commitment along with the other extras that you see below. And then I think maybe most importantly is our on-site affordable commitment of 20 CAFs along with a significant number of family-sized units. So with that, we'll close it out and be prepared for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, are there any public speakers?
We have 2 speakers this evening. Our first speaker is virtual, Bernie Byrne, followed by June O'Connell in person. Mr. Byrne, are you online? Okay, Ms. O'Connell. Oh, Michael.
What?
That one's not on. This one is.
Oh, then start me over. So I've owned and lived in a condominium at 2400 Clarendon Boulevard, the Charleston, across from this building for 26 years. I have two requests. I don't support this project at this point. First of all, I request that you instruct the manager to include a section in the report that clearly and transparently describes the status of the courthouse elevator metro improvements. You are basing this project on metro access, so metro access is relevant to you as well as Transportation Commission. Also, it can be said it's only adding 312 units, but that ignores the fact that there are hundreds of upstream residential units coming on, and you cannot get on this elevator between 8 and 9 in the morning because nobody gets off and it's packed. So metro access, forget it. Second of all, I ask that you do not consider that this nice applicant has lowered it from 16 to 14. In the West study, the board made clear that 14 was a cap, even though they had filed a request for their own special club study. And not only that, in approving it, the board said, in order to get a unanimous verdict over Takas and Matt, who wanted a 12-story cap, that the difference between 12 and 14 had to be really special. It had to offer special things. And within 3 months, that argument by those all agreeing that that additional 2 stories of height had to be specially based was lost. It wasn't in the January GLUP study for this, which was one short meeting. It went to the board as a request to advertise, and it was approved unanimously. So they're doing us no favors by dropping the height.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And is Dr. Byrne, did he end up joining us? No. Okay. And Madam Clerk, do we have any commissions to speak with us tonight?
I'm sorry, say again.
Any commissions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Then let's go to the Transportation Commission report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This was heard at last Thursday's Transportation Commission meeting, hearing. We raised a number, we did confirm that there was insufficient space for a southbound floating bus stop on Barton Street. We also did confirm from staff that Cleveland Street is really the safest location for the loading dock and for the garage entrance. So that's sort of the service street. There was some public comment that did oppose it, as we heard right now. She also raised it at that meeting. In our conversation, we did talk about the protected bike lanes, which would actually not be against this project, they'd be across the street from it. The parking ratio is good. It dropped a bit, so we were happy with that. We weren't thrilled that there's not going to be a bus shelter on Barton Street. That's something we've always raised here at Planning Commission too, but right now the applicant is not proposing to include a bus shelter at that bus stop there. The second metro elevator did of course come up. That apparently is now in the one of the longer range capital budget. The soonest under the current view, and you can staff confirm this, would be 2035 by the time it would open. The proposal would be to have 2 express elevators replacing the one sort of clunky elevator. Elevators more like what we have in Roslyn, which are quite fast. It is legitimately a problem. It has been for quite a while. We did vote in favor 9-0 for all 3 of the recommendations of the county manager for both the GLUP amendment, the rezoning, and for this site plan. So it was relatively uncontroversial. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And do we have a committee chair report? Commissioner Steinberger.
Yes. So I chaired the SPRC for this project a while ago at this point. I think it was like mid-March and April. Yeah, so that's a long time. But generally would echo everything the Transportation Commission addressed as well. Overwhelmingly, the applicant was very responsive to feedback from the SPRC membership. There were some sort of tweaks as we went through the SPRC meeting process. In terms of sort of the street activation was a topic that we talked about. I think the applicant was very receptive to sort of efforts to kind of make sure that would be addressed. Some of the massing issues we've heard kind of with the step backs and sort of going from 16 feet to 14 feet. We did talk about the open space and kind of public art. I viewed those as sort of a little bit together. Given the location, the parking ratio was sort of favorably received. So I think from the perspective of sort of, topics to discuss this evening, I think it's very reasonable to, talk about transportation, some of the bus shelter kind of access. That covers parking as well, although I think we were pretty happy with where we ended up on the parking ratio. Street activation, open space, public art, I sort of lump those together. You don't have to. And then design overall, although I do think the SBRC was content with where we got to on the design element, for this building by the end of the process. And I can answer any other more specific questions.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Steinberger. So we have for discussion topics, transportation, site activation, open space, public art, and the overall site design. Does anybody want to add anything additional to that?
I'd like to include public art.
Okay. Okay, so then why don't we start with transportation, clarifying questions or comments? Commissioner Berkey?
Yeah, so I think I see 4% of the spaces will be available for EV vehicles. Do we have a sense at this point of how many may be eligible to be converted, like down the road, if the applicant decides that that's something you want to provide for your residents?
Yes, we have 4% that'll be ready day one and 15% that are going to be EV ready down the road.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions about transportation? I guess I'll just follow up on the Transportation Commission's comments about the bus shelter. Why not? I mean, we've heard of like $1 million bus shelters. I don't think that's what we're asking for here. So why can't we do a bus shelter there?
Sure. And it's something that we took a close look at both during the SPRC and then even following Transportation Commission. And I think it boils down to, we've got a limited amount of street and sidewalk space. And we have the competing interests not only of the retail space and pedestrian areas, but also the street trees. And that corner is relatively constrained. If we could share, I think we have an image that we were kind of looking at that I think helps to show that constraint pretty well. That's slide 16 of our presentation. I think it might be helpful for the commission to see it, to kind of see physically where that is. It is a rendering, of course, right? It's not an engineered plan, but I think it gives you a sense of what that looks like. So I can try to share it unless Ms. Martin has it handy. Sorry to ask you to do that again. There we go. So you can see here that you've got the kind of sidewalk apron there at the corner, and then a relatively small space that could be available for a bus shelter there before you hit the street trees. As you all are probably aware, Arlington County takes very seriously its tree placement requirements, and we spend a significant amount of time talking about those. And so those are often kind of set in stone, so to speak, as permanence. And so everything else kind of has to go around those. Our concern then, not only with the kind of amount of space that's left there for a bus shelter and just how that would operate with all of that happening right there, also is also the impact on the retail and the open space, right? We want this to be a very visible corner where folks see what the activity that's going on and have some concerns of the bus shelter having an opaque some semi-opaque structure there might detract from that. So that's kind of what went into our thinking, but certainly something that we understand and have taken a close look at throughout the process.
Okay, thank you. Other questions on transportation? Okay, then let's go to site activation. No questions or
I mean,
Oh.
I don't have a question on it. I think the applicant was responsive to the concerns about that. I think that placing the retail and sort of emphasizing that on sort of the open, as much open kind of pavilion, green space, pavilion is the wrong word, but I think people know what the area that I'm talking about is a smart approach. Additional changes, I believe, were made to the garage door material to try to increase activation and sort of visually increase that. And again, I think ultimately the SPRC group was comfortable with where we ended up on that. It was a fulsome topic at the first meeting, and I think folks were fairly content by the second meeting on that topic.
Okay.
But I don't have a question.
Oh,
No.
Commissioner Linton.
And is it true that the units that face Wilson Boulevard will open out onto Wilson Boulevard rather than be accessed from interior only?
They will open out onto Wilson. Will there? There's also an interior hallway. So yes, they will open out onto Wilson Boulevard.
Okay, great. Yeah, I wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
Okay, then moving on to open space and public art. Commissioner Bagley.
Although Dr. Byrne didn't join us tonight, I'm assuming that the trees that are being planted are native. And could we request that they are like shade trees, especially since that's on the southern side? It might be really welcoming for the folks who are, thank you.
Yes.
And will there be common milkweed? Thank you. I'm not making fun. I think somebody's defending the monarchs. Thank you.
Commissioner Patel.
So I am particularly interested in the public art component of the project. I don't think that we as a commission really kind of push this issue. We push affordable housing a lot. We push, and I obviously, I'm sure Commissioner Guevara is going to make my comments related to affordable housing. So I'm going to spend my time on public art. We as a commission do not really push a lot on public art and what opportunities lie in new development in terms of creating visually engaging, culturally inclusive spaces for people to congregate and live in. We don't push for developers to really think about what is locally meaningful when thinking about public art. And so I think about this space in between Clarendon and Courthouse as a connector space. It is culturally significant in many ways. For people who have resided in Arlington at least as long as I have, and I see people in this room who potentially may have resided here longer than me, without pointing out anybody's birth date. But this is an area where there was, in my lifetime, a significant representation of Vietnamese families in the Clarendon corridor, a counterculture in terms of the Iota Club and nightlife that existed in Clarendon. And I notice that in a lot of our public art, we are not including those references to make sure that we are grounding people in the cultural and historical relevance of Arlington and the people that have made Arlington what it is today. And so I appreciate that you guys have gone to the artist who has previously made the public art that exists, but I think that we can do more and we need to do more. And quite frankly, I'm sad to see that oftentimes, even within the county, we do not ensure that the opportunities for artists to come forward and produce the public art that we need to invest more in is done in recognition of their lived experiences, and that it is ethnically and culturally diverse. So I am hopeful that you will take these comments, make sure that you are dedicating a specific amount of your development dollars to providing culturally relevant, locally meaningful public art in that space. I'm just leaning in on the Vietnamese immigrant experience in Clarendon and the counterculture, but that particular area, I can tell you growing up and being down in that area, I mean, it was a commercial district, Sears used to be down in that area, right? That was where people went to go shop. And for many people who are moving to Arlington, I mean, we brag about our transit-oriented community, but transit-oriented and smart growth and transportation policies also resulted in significant gentrification. And so where the people who might have lived there and grew Arlington may not be living there now. And it is a prime opportunity for us to be able to honor their existence and experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Patel. I think that was really nicely said, and I completely agree and support that. So, other comments about public art or the open space? Commissioner Steinberger.
Just with regards to the outreach that the applicant did to the artist behind the existing sculpture that's there, the SPRC was very responsive to that and appreciated that outreach, and I think kind of found it entertaining that the artist really wanted a chance to like do this again. So it was sort of nice that kind of looks like it will come about, because there was some concern about how he would feel about his sculpture being moved, and apparently he was excited to get a second take at it. So, okay.
Commissioner Guevara and then Commissioner Lantelmi.
Hi, I'd like to associate myself with Commissioner Patel's comments. I think that it doesn't have to be an either or, right? We can still have the previous artists contribute to it, but also pay homage to our past. And I would also argue our future. I was involved with CIFA, and they did where we had a workshop with students from Arlington County and how they envision sort of justice and what does that mean. And honestly, I don't think it needs to be something extremely expensive, but why not incorporate it into the sculpture? Why not their visions? I think at times we get a little bit complacent with what's already been done, but I think if we push the envelope a little bit, it'll be not only paying homage to our past, but also paving a way for the future.
Thank you. Commissioner Lantelmi.
Yeah, I'm touching on open space. What I see this project is doing in a very good way is correcting an error that was built into the building that's there now, which is that big lawn with the sculpture in the middle of it, which, having lived in that neighborhood for decades, I never knew was public open space. That it never read that way, it never looked that way. It was, of course, up a bit because of the garage underneath, but it looks like private space, just a big empty grassy thing with a sculpture in the middle. And every time I'd walk by it, I'd think, we would never allow that in the future. We would never allow that today. That would never happen today. And sure enough, it won't be happening today because we're doing it right this time. We're making it ground level. It's accessible. It will read as open space, just naturally read as public space. I'm sorry, public space. So this is definitely correcting an error that was made 40 years ago in the 1980s, because it wasn't until like 2 years ago I found out that it's actually public space. Thank you.
Thank you. I did want to acknowledge that our public speaker from earlier did end up getting on. Unfortunately, we've started our discussion, so we aren't going to return to public comment, but we are very familiar with Dr. Burns' feedback that he provides and have addressed the common questions that he asked. So thank you, Dr. Byrne, for your continued interest in these projects, and we hope you are able to join us for future meetings. Okay. Next, anybody else on open space or public art? Okay, then let's go to the site design or building design. No questions. And then affordable housing. Commissioner Guevara.
Just to make sure I'm following correctly, so you're going to have 9 one-bedrooms and 11 two-bedrooms, so it's CAF at 60% AMI, correct?
Correct.
Can you speak to the rest of the composition of the building?
Yes, just a moment here. So we are 11% studios, 8.2% junior one bedrooms, 36% one bedrooms, 11% one bedroom den, 12% two bedroom, 10% two bedroom plus den, and 9% three bedroom. And so I think what you'll see from that is we do have a slightly larger percentage of family sized units that are in the affordable camp when compared to the market rate, please.
Just to add a little bit of context for that, I think when you look at recent developments in the RB corridor specifically, you see a lot of buildings that have close to 800 square feet on average, if not south of that. It ultimately ends up being these really small, either true studio floor plans or even junior one bedroom floor plans that cater to a much younger renter demographic. So the current design of this building, we're averaging close to 874 square feet, so much closer to 900. And just to piggyback off Ked's comment, that's really driven by having larger floor plans, either two bedroom plus 10 or true three bedroom units as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But none of those have been dedicated towards CAFs, right? Or affordable units, either the two bedroom and den or the three bedrooms.
To my knowledge, the way that the affordable program works is we have to have a true one bedroom or a true two bedroom unit at the minimum. So if we were to provide something larger than that, it would have to be, I guess, a three bedroom.
It would have to be what, I'm sorry?
A three bedroom.
Okay, so I think I'm going to underscore something that we've said across this commission for multiple times. I know, Kendrick, it's probably going to sound like a broken record to you, but we've always pushing to make sure that we have larger sized units and not just the one bedrooms or even the two bedrooms allocated to affordable housing. Other things that we've pushed for is not just doing 60% AMI. That becomes kind of a lazy, for lack of a better term, equation where you could be doing 80% AMI and then others at 40%, so that we are bringing more of the financial diversity and resilience that we could have, particularly since it is in the metro corridors. This would be an amazing opportunity for families who can have access to, the metro. So many folks have to live outside the corridor because they can't afford to live anywhere close by it. So I think providing those opportunities for our most vulnerable members of society would actually really be something that we would champion if you guys would, as you're making your final determinations, reconsider with that lens. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Guevara. I agree. Commissioner Patel?
Thank you. I said I wasn't going to say anything about this, but I would be remiss in not adding, and I think we've said this many times. I mean, the Arlington Community Foundation has issued a report on where we have committed affordable housing, and that is at the 60% AMI, right? We don't have enough affordable housing lower than 60%. And I think for me and everybody that's on this commission, on this dais right now and associated with this commission, we understand that there's nothing that we can do to change that here, right? We keep saying the same thing over and over again. The regulations, the legislation do not require more than what is being offered time and time again by developers. But I think that that's not what we're really trying to impress upon developers. We're impressing upon the development community to do more in the same way that we ask others in our community to do more, the same way that we ask our nonprofit sector to do more, the same way that we ask our county agency partners to do more. And so it is only fair to ask our commercial partners to do more. And so, it's great that you have 20 committed affordable units. That's wonderful. It's great that you have more two bedrooms than one bedrooms. That's wonderful. But sitting them at 60% AMI is not doing more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Patel. Any final comments before we give to motions? Okay, Commissioner Berkey.
I apologize. This does not fit within affordable housing, but we're talking about families, so I feel like that's a good segue. All right, we did get a letter from I believe it's the director of the Ladybug Academy, And I read the notes in the staff report about the conditions, but I guess I'll just open it up and ask, is there a path forward? I'm looking for a ton of detail here, but I've been involved in projects or I'm aware of projects in the past. We've had unfortunate situations where there's been redevelopment. Our applicant community, certainly our county, has sort of worked to kind of accommodate, make things work. We talk, constantly about the lack of childcare. The last thing we want to do, especially as we're trying to promote more economic growth, families, that sort of thing, is to see, vibrant businesses kind of be chased out after having kind of established themselves. So having said all that, is there a path forward that you can describe, at least in general terms at this point?
Certainly. We've been in contact with the Ladybug daycare operator. It's something that we continue to work through, whether it's looking for relocation options that would allow her to relocate temporarily during construction or more permanently. It's not something that's been resolved at this point, which I want to make sure to highlight is not atypical to these office redevelopments, whether it's an office tenant who has term on their lease or a ground floor retail tenant. So I think it was highlighted throughout our SPRC process as well, how much of a priority figuring out a plan will be with this particular tenant. So it remains a priority for us. And I think more than anything, we want to be communicative around that plan going forward, not only with her, but with the community who happens to utilize her services.
And if I could just add two things, the standard site plan conditions do require working with Arlington Economic Development on relocation plans for any tenants that are operating in the property. Beyond that, I've made calls and discussed with both economic development and the county manager's office ways to partner with Ladybug to find other opportunities for them. So we are actively working on ensuring that they can continue in whatever capacity that might be.
And that's appreciated, because I think even the weight that you can bring, if folks or whatever, I think that can be really helpful. We've seen that, I live on Columbia Pike. We've seen redevelopment. The challenge in my view, right, is the redevelopment. That's not the enemy, right? That's not the bad thing necessarily. It's just the reality in our community, right, that a lot of our childcare options, right, that's an affordable leasing option. And so inevitably we face redevelopment and there's this conflict, but we don't want to discourage economic development or redevelopment, but at the same time, it's managing kind of the conflict of those things kind of butting up against each other. And so if folks who can kind of put them together, I think that would be a really optimal solution to show we can kind of work through these things. We can walk and chew gum at the same time, as they say. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Berkey. Commissioner Steinberger, and then I'm going to move to motions because we have another big item for tonight.
No, I just wanted to reiterate that the process of sort of, and what would happen with the Ladybug Academy did come up during the SPRC, and the general consensus was, the developer was responsive to that, and that's certainly something that, the SPRC would like to see, that, whether the academy, the preschool, moves back to the same location after being somewhere else, the relocation is temporary or permanent, what have you. Obviously, like, what that process looks like is something that the SPRC team was very invested in. So that was discussed, and I think that the conversations that are ongoing, but they're heading in a positive direction. So
great. Yes, we would love to see little children walking down the street with their little rope after the project is finally developed. They're very cute, and the parents shop in the area when they pick them up from daycare. Okay, so let's move to motions. Do we have some motions, Commissioner Steinberger?
I have 3 motions.
Okay.
So I move that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution to approve the general land use plan amendment to change the land use designation for an approximately 1.42 acre parcel located at 2500 Wilson Boulevard, RPC number 18-001-006-008-009-010-011-012-021-030 022-029 and -030 from low office apartment hotel to medium office apartment hotel.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Patel seconds. Thank you very much. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, so let's move to votes. Commissioner Lantelmi?
Aye.
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger,
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley,
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara,
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey,
Aye.
and I will also say aye, so that passes unanimously. Do we have a second motion, please?
We do. I move that the planning commission adopt the attached ordinance to rezone the property located at 2500 Wilson Boulevard, RPC number 18-007-006-008-009-10 -11-12-21-22-29-30 from CO 1.5 mixed use district to CO 2.5 mixed use district as provided in attachment C.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Patel seconds. Any discussion? I don't see any, so let's move to a vote. Commissioner Lantelmi,
Aye.
Commissioner Patel,
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger,
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley,
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara,
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey,
Aye.
and I will also say aye. That passes unanimously. Do we have another motion?
Yes, this is my final motion. I move the planning commission adopt the attached ordinance for SPLA 24-00034, SP number 220, to permit the construction of a 14-story mixed-use building with approximately 3,719 square feet of residential GFA and 14,032 square feet of retail GFA with modifications for additional density exclusion, setbacks, reduced residential and retail parking ratio, compact parking ratio, and other modifications as necessary to achieve the proposed development located at 2500 Wilson Boulevard, RPC number 18-007-006-008-009-10-11-12-21-22-29-30, subject to conditions of the attached ordinance.
Second.
Thank you for your second. Do we have any discussion on the motion? No discussion. Then we'll go to a vote. Commissioner Lantelmi,
Aye.
Commissioner Patel,
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger,
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley,
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara,
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey,
Aye.
and I will also say aye. That passes unanimously. Do we have an additional motion?
I am going to try to craft a motion. I move that the planning commission recommend that the county board require the developer to allocate to coordinate with the community or through I'm looking at Emma, through the Commission on the Arts for culturally inclusive and locally meaningful public art located at the site that honors the historical, I think that's locally meaningful. Emma, can you put it on the screen what I wrote? Matt, you got it? Okay, thank you. Let me just see what, it's easier for me to see. Thank you.
Okay, here's what I've got.
Thank you so much. So move that the planning commission recommend that the county board require the developer to coordinate with the community through coordinate with the community through the Commission on the Arts for culturally inclusive, locally meaningful, and historically relevant public art at the development site. So culturally inclusive, comma, locally meaningful, comma, and historically relevant.
Am I allowed to second as the chair?
Yes.
I second that.
Locally meaningful and.
Commissioner, what was the final clause?
The final one is after meaningful is comma and historically relevant.
So it's the Arlington Commission for the Arts / Public Art Committee. Those are just.
You know,
The
I
official
just know the
piece.
Commission on the Arts because I remember getting a presentation from them. But, you know, I would expect that the Commission on the Arts would be able to convene the community around what that public art could look like and assist the developer on what that public art could look like in a way that by the guidance that's being given here.
Per the recommended public art condition, they already have to go to the Arlington Commission for the Arts and Public Art Committee, but we can.
Put that in there. Thank you.
Commissioner Steinberger. Oh, this is like the board report that will go to the board when Commissioner Guevara presents it next week.
These are essentially my notes.
I just asked him to put my motion on the screen so I could read it. No. Yeah, it's just for me to be able to read it and make my motion in real time.
I think Mr. Pfeiffer is just already working on the board report that will go. And so,
we have a motion and a second.
yes. Any discussion about the motion? Commissioner Berkey?
Well, okay, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. So I'm looking at, so Ms. Martin, I think you were referring to condition 17 that already exists in the
Correct.
report, right? So this is for Commissioner Patel. What does this motion do that is not already contained in condition 17?
So for me, I want to make sure, I know that there's lots of conversation around what the public art can be at that location. And as Commissioner Guevara said, you know, there's nothing mutually exclusive here. The artists who previously worked on that sculpture, I mean, you can have that inside the building. There's lots of different things that you could do with that particular piece of art. You can incorporate into a new piece of art. But I want the Commission on the Arts, I want everybody to be working from the same page, which is whatever public art that we are putting there, it needs to be significant to that neighborhood, not just to that development project. And we have a very rich history in the Clarendon Courthouse area. And I don't see any of these developments putting up any public art that is really elevating that history. And so, you know, to the extent that past is prologue, I think that our kids should be, our kids here on the dais and the kids in the audience and everybody else in this community should be able to appreciate historical references in that corridor. And they don't have to be, they don't have to be just simply the two notes that I put out there. Those two notes are just the ones that I know from my lifetime. Now, granted, Arlington predates me. So, you know, I really would like for us to, you know, dig deep and think about what is the art in that space? What does it look like? How do we tie community together in that space? The renderings of what the open space looks like, and I agree with Commissioner Lentelme about even just bringing it down and making it feel like public open space is important. I think the seating, the way that the diagram, like all of that is important. Now imagine that we put something that is historically and culturally relevant and locally meaningful. And let's all get on the same page in making sure that that comes to fruition.
Okay, I think we are ready for a vote. No, okay, Commissioner Steinberger? Sorry, Commissioner, okay.
I'm probably going to abstain in this, not because I disagree with what you're saying, because I agree. It's because I think it's almost too narrow in that we have art throughout this county that isn't necessarily culturally relevant to that neighborhood. But for example, Dark Star Park, that is an amazing art installation, which has nothing to do with the culture, but it's a gathering place. People think it's really cool. It makes you think of other things, you know, how the celestial bodies work and everything. So art is something that should be really expansive, and I'm sort of reluctant to restrict it to one particular avenue. And that's a valid avenue, and it should be included and it should be considered along with all the other reasons that we put art and why we want to have a particular art piece in a particular area. So that's the only reason I'm abstaining, because I think it's a little bit too narrow. But it is something that should be always included in deciding. And as you know, Langston Boulevard, we have now murals, which really reflect the cultural desires, needs of those particular neighborhoods, which work wonderfully. But we also have art that has nothing to do with anything, on different parts of the corridor. So that's why I'll be abstaining on this, just because I think it's too narrowly drawn. Thank you.
Commissioner Steinberger?
So I'm almost looking at this as too ill-defined, and I think that's why I'm abstaining or voting no. I haven't decided. Culturally inclusive, locally meaningful, and historically relevant. Those are very broad concepts, I think, and I'm not sure how we kind of get. I don't know. It's not making me feel like this is getting us in a direction. It feels buzzwordy and not getting us in a direction that's going to lead to sort of a meaningful engagement with the Arts Commission, with the community, and sort of what's going to be on the site. I'm also cognizant of the fact that I don't want this to overtake what the existing artist who's going to, has a vested stake in redesigning his piece of art to do. I don't want that to overtake, in this instance, what that would be. And I don't want this to sort of become an example of something that, like, I'm not sure, while I agree with this in principle, I'm not sure this is the example where I'd want to do it, given the existing art on site and sort of the relationship with that artist, to have something to redesign the art that he's already created there. And I'm thinking about it from the context of sort of coming from the Historic Affairs Landmark Review background, the HLRB, and sort of what I'd almost want this to be something that we sort of had a further engagement in a workshop, talking with the HLRB and the Commission on the Arts, and sort of us to sort of like what a process would look like for how we are going to approach, what is historically relevant, culturally inclusive, and that I think there's more stakeholders that need to be involved. And I'm not sure that this process has brought us to that. So I think I'm voting no. I just talked myself into that.
Can I actually ask a clarifying question to the applicant? The art that was pictured, that's not already designed. That's just like an example. So
Correct.
The site condition is that they're going to get $200,000 to conceptualize something and then execute it. So theoretically, the existing artist that we have in mind could partner with a member of one of our historically marginalized communities whose community formerly lived in this neighborhood, and work together to provide something culturally relevant.
Correct.
Commissioner Guevara.
So I think this discussion is sort of indicative of how art can be subjective in many respects, right? We have one of my fellow commissioners here saying that it's too prescriptive, then Commissioner Steinberger saying that it's too broad. I wonder if perhaps we could meet some way and we include the HLRB into this sort of language, or we don't have to. I suppose the bottom line is, I think we always have this sort of conversation, well, it can't be affordable housing or we'll use the next iteration as an example, or we'll use the next sort of project to sort of put forth our what we want to do. But I think, hey, we have an opportunity right now. Why not just do something where you could partner, right? 200K, like I said, you could do a mural with the kids or something. I just don't think that it should be necessarily a showstop to kind of put forward our intent and be more creative. Because yes, perhaps the artist, had something envisioned or was working with that, but in the same way that the applicant has shown that they've been flexible in working with the community, I would argue that perhaps the artist could be a little bit more flexible too, to ensure that it is that he is representing sort of the historical relevance and inclusivity that we would want to sort of say that's one of our principles here.
Okay.
I'll be quick.
Okay, very
I promise I'll be
please.
quick.
And then we're going to vote.
Okay, I just align myself with Commissioners Lentelme and Steinberger. I would add, the reason why there are, in my view, times and places to kind of dig into these policies is because we want to make sure that we're not making arbitrary decisions based upon certain sites. And I think that each site is unique and definitely has its own considerations, and it has its strengths, weaknesses, that sort of thing. But like we do have things like the public art master plan, the public art policy, which are both in the site condition already. We have other master plans that a lot of folks have worked for years tirelessly on. We're doing transportation, looking at that vision right now. I love the spirit of this. I worry being more prescriptive makes it less workable ultimately in a practical way. And maybe this is something to think about when we think about a public art policy, if we want to get that prescriptive in site plans, right? About being local to a neighborhood. But I think without the input that Commissioner Steinberger spoke to, I just unfortunately cannot support this motion at this time. Thanks.
Okay, and the last word to Commissioner Patel, and then we are going to vote.
So I'm going to disagree that it's prescriptive. I think the language is intentionally open and it's subject to interpretation by the artist. So an artist can come in and do whatever they want and be able to point to how it is culturally inclusive, how it is locally meaningful. Your example about the art installation in Roslyn, we have celebration every year when everything is in alignment. That is locally meaningful to us. How it's historically relevant. There are so many different ways that an artist can come into this space and be able to provide their interpretation in this context. The conversation, I think, and I'll say this to my fellow commissioners, it's not, and I appreciate what you said, Jim, about your comments and providing the examples that you did, particularly about the mural on Langston Boulevard on the swim, the outfitter's place. Nothing here is amending policy. Nothing here is affecting the art, any guidelines that we have in art. What it is saying here is we have to appreciate our history. I mean, that is the comment that comes into this room every single month, is this conversation. You're erasing what Arlington is. You are all this development, it's affecting me. It's, I'm not able to keep up. And what this is allowing is for us to open up our arms and say, change is good, but we are also going to remember our past. And so there's nothing in here that says that the developer cannot work with the artist of their choice. There's nothing in here that says you have to work with somebody who is from a marginalized community. There's nothing in here that says you have to do X, Y, and Z. But we've just said to you, it is important. It is important for the Planning Commission, for our public art to be meaningful. And so if you vote no, Godspeed to you. But I'm saying vote yes, because it's important.
Thank you. And now we will go to our vote. Commissioner Lantelmi.
Abstain.
Commissioner Patel.
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger.
Nay.
Commissioner Bagley.
Nay.
Commissioner Guerra.
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey.
Nay.
Commissioner Peterson, aye. So we have 3 ayes and 3 nays and 1 abstention. So that it fails. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much to the applicant for bringing this project to us this evening. Thank you very much.
Just because it failed doesn't mean that you can't do it.
Thank you very much to Ms. Martin and Mr. Johnson for your work as staff members. Thank you to our public speakers for speaking to us this evening about the topic. And thank you to our chair of the project for your work. Madam Clerk, do we have another agenda item?
Yes, we do. Let's give them a few moments to change out. Thank you.
Yeah, they might. Like, I'll be yes, Peter. Guys, teams don't let her in.
Item number 2, 2A, B, and C. A, REZN 25-00003, rezoning. B, SPLN 22-00010 for site plan 471. And C, an ordinance to vacate. This is for 1601. Is that correct? Yes, Fairfax Drive. We have Peter Schultz, our planning staff, to present this item this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just want to note for all of us in the room, we're at 8:15. We're going to try real hard to get out on time. So let's all stick to the timer on the podium. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Schultz, for your presentation, your fabulous report, and for answering questions earlier today for me.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have Sergio Virroquea from the Department of Environmental Services, Development Services Bureau with me, and also Michael Haluski of the Department of Real Estate, the Real Estate Bureau of the Department of Environmental Services. Just to quickly summarize the requested actions that the developer is requesting, it is a rezoning of a small parcel of land, a portion of Fairfax Drive, to be vacated. It is a new site plan to construct a multifamily building on the resulting site, and an ordinance to vacate easements for a sidewalk and that right-of-way proposed to be rezoned. Just to remind everybody, this location is at 1601 Fairfax Drive. It is in the Fort Myers Heights North area, and it will become very important as part of my discussion to discuss that the north half of the site is owned by Wesley Housing and was developed about 10 years ago, separately from the adjacent site, and that comes into our discussion of the plan's recommendations and the resulting recommendation that staff has. The general land use plan and zoning, zoning is RA 615 and S3A, so that portion of the Fairfax Drive right-of-way is proposed to be rezoned to RA 615. The GLUP is medium residential. It's also in, as you see, a special district called the Fort Myers Heights North Special District, upon which there are special regulations in the zoning ordinance and a small area plan that was developed. This is just to give you an idea of the size. This is unnecessary right-of-way for Fairfax Drive. And in fact, it actually, the part of the parking lot of the current motel actually encroaches into this. It is not needed. In order to provide the urban edge along Fairfax Drive, which the plan calls for, the developer was requesting a vacation of this 3,000 square feet. They'll tell you more about the proposed site plan, but it is a new site plan. They propose to demolish the existing motel, build an 8-story building of 142 units and about 5.3 floor area ratio with stick-over concrete construction. I alluded to the zoning ordinance, and I'll get into the planning areas. The zoning ordinance was amended along with the general land use plan and the adoption of this plan of this area in order to implement the recommendations of the plan. I'm not going to read this whole introductory paragraph, but there's a very long introductory paragraph in section 9.3 of the zoning ordinance, which lays out upon which the developer could permit, or I should say the county board could permit development up to 3.24 FAR, where the goals recommended in the plan for that site are addressed. And like many other plans, it was codified in the zoning ordinance. There's a special section 9, the subsequent section 9.31, which does permit the county board to approve a floor area ratio above that 3.24 FAR for achieving goals consistent with the intent of the plan, provided that development is consistent with the design guidelines. So as we lay out in the staff report at greater length, first, the level of 9.3, which is to get up to the 3.24 FAR, has to be for a project that's in a manner consistent with the recommendations of the plan and where the goals for the plan for that site are addressed. And then there's the section of the zoning ordinance for may exceed even 3.24 FAR for achieving goals consistent with the plan, provided that it's consistent with the design guidelines. So the Fort Myers Heights North Plan was adopted in 2008 after a few years of community engagement. The parameters, in fact, the original intent here, in order for the developer to so much as enter the site plan process, the following recommendations should be met. Of course, we cannot refuse a site plan application, but it gives you an idea of the importance of fulfilling the plan's varied goals in a balanced manner. If we follow the plan's recommendations, we will balance all of these goals. And therefore, a development can earn this density. And again, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but the mission statement and the vision and goals of this plan, among other things, is to distinguish it from high-density Rosslyn and Courthouse. The whole text of the plan calls this out as a unique area with site design and architectural elements reminiscent of multi-family housing in Arlington built from the 30s through the 50s. Preservation of neighborhood character, that's actually a term we don't see too much in our corridors, but in here it is felt an important aspect of this plan. And provisions of public and private open space. Again, honoring not just the traditional built form in this particular neighborhood, but hoping to continue that with new development. So the southern portion of this development, I should say this neighborhood, the Fort Myers Heights North area, was intended to be the redevelopment district. There's a conservation district further to the north. There's a redevelopment district to the south. And among the reasons for that was the buildings were less important historically at the time of the adoption of the Fort Myers Heights North Plan, as well as this is the lowest point in topography to this site, and up against the high-density Arlington Boulevard, US Highway 50. It was felt that having this as the redevelopment district with, as we see in these slides, the highest densities and the highest heights, would be able to accomplish the goals in a balanced way along with the conservation district further to the north where densities are a little lower in order to encourage preservation of the actual historic fabric that's there. So open space is one of the key goals of this plan. The plan, as I've detailed in my staff report, balances many things: preservation, architecture, neighborhood character, transportation, unique challenges of parking and loading, creative strategies for parking, and open space is one of the areas that should be balanced. And the plan is quite clear to us that it should evoke the garden element of the garden apartment aesthetic, and that private open spaces should be as generally depicted in the illustrative examples, and we'll see the illustrative examples next, and planted in a manner keeping with the garden apartment aesthetic. And tree canopy is one of the major goals of this plan. Site design, including the building placement and its landscaping features, should represent that aesthetic of open lawns and numerous hardwood and ornamental spaces. And you see, talks about openness and open spaces. So there was detailed block-by-block guidance in this plan for areas that were likely to redevelop. And as you see, in 2008, the block was divided between two owners, the motel, and then to the north, an apartment complex dating from the 1940s that was, if not owned at the time by Wesley Housing, was going to be soon purchased by Wesley Housing. So there were two scenarios developed for this particular block. And the preferred scenario was that the entire block redevelop and that the Wesley assemble the entire property in order to create what was staff's preferred plan, which was a building fronting on Fairfax Drive with that urban edge, 12 stories, but 3 of the existing structures being preserved and in their landscaped context. As I understand it at the time, staff strongly encouraged the developer to try to come to an agreement with the owner of the motel in order to redevelop that site. And if that was not possible, we did develop a literal plan B, which was that if in case the sites develop separately, only 2 of the 3 1940s buildings would be preserved with a Again, a 12-story building in between. There was an acknowledgement that there would be a loss of that contextual open space between because of the loss of the third historic building. And the plan in this alternative B states if it develops separately, there should be a substantial open space on the eastern side of the site. Now, this is what we call the illustrative examples. And again, as we all know, illustrative examples are not meant to be exact. Of course, there is no target size in the plan. There's no exact configuration of this private open space to be in the plan, but it does say that there is a substantial private open space, and it should follow the guidelines of private open space elsewhere in the text of the plan. So what we have now is in about 2010, the Union on Queen was built. It preserved two of the buildings, the Union on Queen. The two of the buildings still have some of their historic context in front, especially along 16th Street. Alternative A, of course, is obviously not possible now. So alternative B is our only possible development scenario left. So we must follow the guidance of this alternative B. And the intent of this alternative B is that if you do implement everything as intended, you get pretty much similar, while we do lose one building, you do get a similar amount of open space that might have been possible under the previous plan. So again, it's about how the Fort Myers Heights North Plan balances preservation, open space, affordable housing, redevelopment opportunities, and as some of its most important goals. And how do we accomplish that? Well, we do it through design. So if the southern section of the block is developed independently, obviously, as we mentioned, this area is in the area that could be up to 12 stories, permitted for the highest densities and highest heights. The intent is that this open space will help provide relief from a 12-story building. Many of our plans are written up in the fact that there are, in order to accomplish the goals of the overall framework visions of these plans, there have to be some trade-offs. So taller height here would allow a smaller footprint and allow less of the site to be developed at the ground level. And again, also I should mention that the plan is very clear that open space should be at ground level, even if it is private space, because again, the historic garden apartment aesthetic, the garden apartments don't have elevated open spaces, they have ground level setbacks and open spaces. So here's some neighborhood images, including on the top right is actually the Union on Queen, the two buildings preserved on Union on Queen. So you see the setbacks, another building to the north of 16th Street on the lower photograph. So you see there's canopy trees, shade trees, and grass, and a depth of about 30 or 40 feet, setting that garden apartment context. So what we have, and the applicant will show you, will show you, you know, the building and thoroughly. The site layouts landscape plan here, what you have is the applicant is proposing after online engagement and two SPRCs, a 10-foot setback from the sidewalk, only with two trees. Only one of the trees is an actual canopy tree, at least according to the planting plan currently submitted. I should also mention the transformers that are above grade, as they tend to be these days because of Dominion's shifting and greater needs. They do not allow trees and substantial planting in front of them to obstruct access. So there will be shrubs and the like. And then in between, there is the 20-foot wide parking garage access. It did evolve throughout the review process to eventually the proposal that we see on the far right. At the first SPRC, this open space was above grade, really more of a planter. And with the time of the online engagement in 2023, there were street trees. But as you see this evolution forward, it's unfortunately staff does not believe it still meets the intent and spirit of the plan and the clear guidelines. The current proposal here shows the planting and then interrupted by the planting does curve around into the applicant did work with us to make this lobby open. And as they will tell you, we have negotiated that either the 50 sign would either be preserved itself or recreated inside the building. That helps also mitigate our sign ordinance possible issues too. So putting this all together, we have the plan on the left and the applicant's proposal on the right. And this is just for showing the proposed density. Remember, there's 2 levels by which they have to earn the density here, up to 3.2 FAR. It still has to be compliant with the plan and still has to advance the goals of the plan. And in many aspects, it does. The developer will show you the site mitigation that the developer is offering. There's on-site affordable housing. There's a sustainable design at the 0.25 level. I will wrap this up soon. It is the Green Building Incentive Program participation, affordable housing commitment of 13 units, 7 of which are 2 bedrooms. Historic preservation commitment to work with historic preservation staff to create a historic marker on the site, as well as preserve or at least recreate that 50 sign inside. Showing you the public process. This has actually been a more than 2-year public process to get where we are today. The HLRB met in May 2025 with a 13-0 vote of do not support. The HLRB met because this property is on the Historic Resources Inventory, adopted after the adoption of the Fort Myer Heights North plan, and it, therefore, because it is in the top 1/3 of historic structures listed in the HRI, it did need a meeting of the HLRB to provide guidance. And the county's adopted policies on the HLRB is that we strongly discourage demolition of such buildings, but then we also have the sector plan, which envisions redevelopment of this site. So the HLRB gave their guidance that way. The Transportation Commission recommended approval of the plan with regard to the master transportation plan. This plan does comply. I've got 2 more slides.
Okay, great. And Commissioner Lantelmi will give the update about transportation, so we can see that part.
We just believe that because of the aspects of building form, site layout, and building placement, again, it's not just an open space, it's an issue of building placement and building form. They all work together. That we do not believe it complies with either of earning up to 3.24 FAR or earning above 3.24 FAR. As you know, site plans need to make these, the county board needs to make these 3 findings. Staff does not believe it meets those findings, especially because it is not in staff's belief consistent with applicable plans and policies. And therefore, that is why we're recommending denial of the rezoning, denial of the site plan. However, due to it is supported by our DES and our transportation plans, we do ask the Planning Commission to find that the proposed ordinance to vacate the Fairfax Drive right-of-way actually does meet is substantially in accord with the comprehensive plan. Isolated from the issues with the site plan itself. So this ends my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. Also appreciate the very thorough report that you did on this project. And again, for answering the questions that I sent over at midnight last night, which you responded to very promptly and I circulated to my colleagues. So appreciate all of that. I will now turn things over to the applicant. Of 10 minutes, and we are hoping to get out of here not too late, so please stick to the 10 minutes.
I will be efficient, I promise you, and I think we helped answer those questions today too, so I'm happy to do that. Obviously, good evening, Nicholas Cummings here with Walsh Colucci here on behalf of the applicant, Monument Realty. Keeping in mind that time limit, I'm not going to repeat everything that Mr. Schultz said. I think he went over some of the basics really well. We obviously thank him and his colleagues for their work on this case. I do want to point out, as you consider this proposal, we did create a 21-foot planted setback from Pierce Street that includes the sidewalk. This is actually nearly identical to the size of the setback across Queen Street for the Ray Hill Apartments. We can show you that later during discussion if you want to see it. Their setback is an open lawn because that's a 1950s era building with no streetscape, no trees, no below-grade parking, no loading, no transformers to place. I submit that our building with its 21-foot planted setback looks a bit different because it's a 141 unit apartment building. And we'll get into it later, but I cannot move, access transformers, et cetera. We've got to find a way to get into this site, to park it, to access it. And so we have a lot of challenges here. You just don't have with 1950s era construction that has like a single stair walk up or something like that. It's just not at all the same. Now, that being said, while we obviously don't agree with the ultimate recommendation from staff, the fact that there is really only one issue outstanding, namely that private garden area, that planted setback adjacent to the building, I think demonstrates how our team was able to work with staff to resolve a number of other issues on the project. I'm going to identify them for you because I think it really helps just understand what we've been at for really more than 2 years, almost 3.5. Creating the urban edge on Fairfax Drive is called for in the area plan, including giving space for the county to complete the bike and ped trail on Fairfax Drive. That was critical to this. We had to work through that. Adding substantial tree canopy across the site, including by exceeding Chesapeake Bay targets. And if you all remember, the few of you that were at SPRC, the first meeting, that was an issue. We went back, we worked closely with staff. We expanded soil volumes and amenity areas. We pulled the building back 10 feet, sacrificing 6 units, creating the planted area next to the building with those 2 street trees. We also squeezed in some more street trees on Queen Street as well by working with, by ensuring that we had the soil volumes, but changing the spacing a bit. Adjusting a number of architectural features, including canopies and overhangs. Those are an issue at the beginning of the case, and those are no longer a problem. Addressing the step back on Fairfax Drive for the 4th floor amenity area and working out exactly how that was going to look. Constructively working through multiple design iterations with different elements, including Art Deco, apartment, garden apartment aesthetics, and historic preservation of the existing structure. I'll note too that this is a stick over concrete building. A lot of the time we see those buildings and they look like little cubes and they have no texture, no relief, no variety in the facade. This is really an exceptional design in that sense. I don't want to lose that in the scope of while we talk about everything else going on with this building. Those panels on the front, all the recessed balconies, the use of sort of like texture in the building, pulling some sections out, it really, really helps shape this. So people driving by are not going to know this is a stick built building. It looks more like, quite frankly, steel and concrete construction. The biggest challenge, excuse me, lost my place briefly here. Okay, the hard work and thoughtful deliberation and cooperation resulted in the proposal you're considering tonight. The other things I wanted to mention that we worked through, utility placement, garage design, loading and vehicle access, and of course, green building, working with staff to get those elements into the project. And I'll note too that we have support from C2E2. Now, looking again at the rendering of this building, we see all of those elements coming together in what is, objectively speaking, a great project that is substantially similar, if not better, than many others you've recently supported and seen, including the Red Lion project just across the street, which is actually under construction right now. Very exciting to see that actually being delivered. You can see that high quality design and attention to detail in the facade with use of those white panels to emulate the 50 sign, as well as incorporation into the lobby, recessed balconies that further add relief. I mentioned that earlier, the expanded planted garden on Pierce Street, and of course the fully rebuilt streetscape on all frontages with new canopy trees. This came up at TC. It might seem like a minor improvement, but if you live nearby or walk this site or this neighborhood, you will absolutely appreciate the changes in these sidewalks. Right now, particularly on that hill that is narrow, it is dangerous. A wider sidewalk with a planting strip protecting folks traveling, it's going to help a lot. You can also see, though, on the next slide, how challenging it was to lay out a building design on such a small slope site. It's barely a half acre in size. We needed to fit all those necessary building functions. The site really, it's a half acre, and that's not just our building. We cut into it for wider sidewalks, street width for the county to create the trail across the street, as well as street trees. For those of you who are not in SPRC, there's also bedrock starting in the first underground parking level. That's another serious limitation. It means that excavating it difficult and expensive, very difficult to go for any more parking than we already had. So we had to work very creatively with the garage space that we did have. The biggest challenge, though, that we faced is the housing market and underlying economics behind housing construction today. Ultimately, staff has pointed out that we could provide more open space on this site if the building was 12 stories tall instead of 8 stories. 12 stories is the maximum that the area plan allows. We agree with that. We actually get to the same amount of density, 140 units, if we pile it up into 12. Doing so, however, requires going to high-rise construction, steel and concrete, instead of wood frame over podium. The difference in cost is $100,000 per unit. Translated, that's $700 a month per unit in rent additional, or $14 million spread across the entire project. This land isn't even worth $14 million. There's absolutely no way that steel and concrete construction, i.e. high-rise construction, will likely ever make sense on this site. First of all, it's an awkward height, 12 stories anywhere in the county. It's not really tall enough to justify the additional construction cost. I think you've seen that on other projects. If the area plan even allowed 14 or 16 stories, could we do that? Unfortunately, no. This is not a location where the economics justify the sky-high rents that you would need to have. Rent right now is about $380, $390 a foot in this neighborhood, roughly speaking. You'd be already at $4,600 a month for a one bedroom if you were going to steel and concrete in this location. We're not seeing those rents right now in Courthouse or in Roslyn or in Crystal City adjacent to the metro. You're not going to see them down the hill. We're at the bottom of the hill on Route 50, half a mile from metro. Those rents have to be lower. The only way that ours get high enough to pay for this is if the rent at the metro is even higher. And at that point, you're well over $5,000 a month for a one bedroom in Arlington. I think we're in agreement with staff on the economics of this. When we debated the value of the community benefits package with them, we looked at comps, et cetera, for rents nearby. They agreed because we tried to bring in comps that were from newer buildings close to the metro. They said those are too high. Those locations are different. They command more rent. I think there's a lot of agreement here in that 12 stories probably doesn't work. Rents at this location are just lower. With those facts, we've really come up with the only viable solution here to build a building, at least in the next decade or so, which is providing some private open space in that planted setback and building an 8-story building. The good news is that this still comes with a lot of the other goals in the area plan being fulfilled. In fact, all of them. We have the 13 on-site affordable units, 20 new trees, the planted setback, the urban edge on Fairfax Drive, biophilic design inspired by the red line next door. We heard that in SPRC, we did it. LEED Gold certified construction and other energy efficiency benefits. You can see the C2E2 letter, we rated pretty well. Historic preservation as well, but most importantly, 141 new homes. Arlington is now seeing the lowest number of new housing construction starts since the Great Recession, all while rents continue to rise. I can tell you that figure is 7 or 8%. It's very high. Housing is primarily about supply and demand. The more we as a community can allow to be constructed, the better. This is the best way to slow the growth of rent in Arlington County. Now is not the time to allow the perfect to be the enemy of the good. At the end of the day, the design recommendation at issue here, essentially a planted setback, is practically impossible for the developer to incorporate and should not be the reason the site sits vacant for another decade or more. I ask you to instead examine these planning recommendations, which are almost 20 years old now, in context with current economic conditions, which make realization of the recommended building layout practically impossible, not just now, but for the foreseeable future. And the many plan goals and community benefits we are delivering, we can do with a building that looks more like this. In that context, I think we've proposed a project that does absolutely everything possible to advance critical county policy goals, affordable housing, green building, production of housing generally, while providing much needed community benefits. We thank you for your consideration tonight. We look forward to a positive and collegial debate on this. We want to do everything we can to move this forward and get this building built. Thank you.
Thank you for staying within the time limit. I appreciate that. Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers?
We do have 4 speakers this evening. I'll be calling the names of the virtual speakers online. If you could listen for your name, please turn your camera and your mics on. The first person is Austin Locke, followed by Bernie Byrne.
Mr. Locke, you can go ahead.
Okay, I understand Mr. Locke is not present. Bernie Byrne.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. By the way, I wasn't able to comment on the last one because I couldn't get into the computer, didn't connect. I don't know what the problem was. The July 7th, 2025 revised landscape plan for this project contains a general, quote, general plant pool that contains a large number of plant species. The applicant is going to select from these at a later date. However, common milkweed, Asclepias syriaca, is not one of these species. This is the most important milkweed for supporting monarch butterflies in this area. More than 80% of monarchs migrating to Mexico have fed on common milkweed as caterpillars. The applicant should therefore add common milkweed to the general plant pool and install this species in the project. It doesn't need to install any other milkweeds. Further, to help pollinators, the applicant should ensure that wind-pollinated grass and sedges comprise less than 25% of all herbaceous plantings. Those plants, these wind-pollinated plants can compete with the other with nectar plants. The general plant pool contains many species that are not native to North America or are native to North America, but are not native to Arlington and its vicinity. All plants should be native to the Arlington area. The plant pool also contains many cultivars. Many cultivars have features that don't attract or support pollinators because of modifications. The applicant should therefore remove all cultivars from the planting pool. I will send the applicant a detailed list of these undesirable plants during the next week. The applicant should remove these plants from the pool before the county board considers this project. The applicant should also place low fencing around all tree trenches and plantings or elevate them to protect them from trampling and dogs.
Thank you, Dr. Byrne.
Thank you, Dr. Byrne. Our next speaker is Leslie Arminsky, followed by Stuart Stein.
Good evening. I am speaking on behalf of Ray Thumb tonight. In evaluating the merits of the applicant's plan for the Inn of Roslyn site, it is important to note that the block was split with Union on Queen built on the north side. We acknowledge the remaining site is topographically and size challenged. The developer proposes an 8-story stick-on concrete building similar to the construction height of the approved Red Line project directly across North Peace Street. Staff is critical that the applicant's proposal does not provide sufficient open ground level private green space and argues that the developer might go to 12 stories, a potentially much more expensive proposition. We don't usually worry about a developer's cost, but we do if the requirements are to a level that no developer is going to undertake the project under current economic circumstances. And we wind up with a situation much like the Keybridge Marriott with a vacant site. We don't want that here. We don't see how a 12-story building is better for honoring the garden apartment aesthetic mentioned numerous times in the staff report, and we just don't think it is realistic in this economy. The plan proposes a 0.51 parking ratio. We understand the move away from car dependence by the county, but Rayfam feels the site is somewhat underparked. The developer has proposed a promise to meet the county's green initiative for EV charging. We would like more, but it is a start. We are very much in support of the 13 new committed affordable housing units that the developer is proposing to build on site where there's previously had been none. We also appreciate the numerous trees along the sidewalks. In conclusion, Rayfam believes the project should go forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Stuart Stein.
Yes, I worked on the Fort Myer Heights North Plan for many years. It was a very difficult process. It should be remembered that the plan was not initiated to incentivize redevelopment. Instead, it was an attempt to protect the neighborhood from both Roslyn and Courthouse. The plan recognized that this is a distinct and separate area, in no way just a part of the R&B corridor. The goal was not 125 feet in height. The absolute maximum was 125 feet. The goal was not density above 3.24 FAR. It was something that was allowed for very specific reasons. I can tell you that even Carrie Johnson was surprised at the bulk and approved density once bonuses were granted. We lost much of our original vision and hopes that we had for Fairfax Drive in order to preserve the neighborhood. All that I have to do is look at the Gables building to remember that, or even at Union on Queen and its huge bulk. We understand the difficulties with the Inn of Roslyn site were to be developed apart from the rest of the block. It is an orphan site with many constraints and difficulties. Substantial landscape green space would take up a large part of the site. I believe an acceptable future building would require a large portion of the site be dedicated to open space and for the density to be greatly reduced. I doubt this will happen. If your goal is to build a much larger building, then please vote instead to ask for the approval of this building. This project contributes to affordable housing, provides numerous trees. It also offers a possible solution for an orphan site that may actually get built. I greatly appreciate the concerns of staff, and it's heartwarming to see them speak up for our community, but they are not the ones who will finally approve a future site plan. When I look at the possible results of a different approach, I see token checkbox green space in a tall but still bulky building, not at all related to a garden apartment development. I also want to associate myself with Mr. Arminsky's.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments tonight. Madam Clerk, do we have any commissions to speak to us?
Not tonight.
Okay, thank you. And we will go to the Transportation Commission's report. Commissioner Lantelmi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was also considered at last Thursday's Transportation Commission meeting. We determined that the parking ratio is 0.44, which is acceptable. And we also noted that in the report, there was no staff concerns with transportation-related issues for this project. We did have some public comments, the same people we heard tonight, both Mr. Stein and Mr. Arminsky, who said essentially the same thing at Transportation Commission. In our conversation for this project, we limited ourselves to transportation issues. We did note that the sidewalks all around the project are greatly improved over what is there right now. We did talk about where the bus stop would go, which is actually in front of Red Lion rather than here. We did talk about parking, which, as I noted, the parking ratio was acceptable. And that was pretty much it. We did not have a lot really to discuss because it does fulfill the requirements of the comp plan for transportation-related issues. When our motions were both for all three of them were voted on unanimously as being consistent with the master transportation plan. That means the site plan application itself, the rezoning of the vacated area, and the vacation itself, as I mentioned, were all found to be consistent with the master transportation plan, and the votes were unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So Commissioner Robertson was the SPRC chair for this project. He is unable to join us tonight, but he did send us a very thorough report of the SPRC meetings over the weekend. So I'm sure you all had a chance to review that. So I think we can open it up to discussion. The major issues for the project appear to be site design, building form and architecture, and public space and tree canopy. Are there any other agenda items that we want to add for our discussion? Okay, then we will start with site design. Any clarifying questions or comments? Commissioner Berkey.
This is for Mr. Cummings. Just confirm that I heard you correctly. So you had said in your presentation that even if the area plan did permit 14 to 16 stories, it still would not be feasible under your analysis.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, I'm a land use attorney. The astute analysis is coming from my client here, Mr. Josh Olson, who and his company can, you know, do these things. The additive cost of steel and concrete construction as you go taller and taller, you're still paying that additional premium per unit. And part of the problem here is just how our zoning works. So if I start to stack more and more units on here to try to defray those costs, I have to still earn that density above a 3.24 FAR at roughly $45 a foot from the county with community benefits, which we're doing here and we're thrilled to do because we planned for it, we could expect it, et cetera, and it's part of the project budget. But if you start to go to 14 to 16, especially on just a third of the site, it becomes very challenging. The other issue here is the bedrock and parking. And if we start to dig into bedrock for parking, it becomes very expensive. Then you get to, well, if I'm adding density to justify a taller building, how low can I go at the bottom of the hill on the parking ratio and still lease the units, let alone, what other people from a policy perspective think the parking supply for a building should be. So it still just becomes an enormous challenge. Quite frankly, even if the seller gave us the land for free, we couldn't build a steel and concrete building here because the cost premium is so high and just the rents wouldn't make up for it. We just know that we couldn't charge that much, basically.
Sure. Thank you.
I'll ask a question. So I attended the SPRC meetings. I appreciated the great efforts that you went through to try to make this project work. One of the concerns has been that, we're looking at the historic garden style apartments, which are often the U shape with like a courtyard in the center. Right now, you just kind of have a block with a side strip of some greenery. Why didn't you maybe move that green strip to the front kind of center of the building and like maybe give a little bit more of your building into the green space? I feel like you did some kind of homage to the garden style or to the Art Deco look of the building, but staff's really pushing for like garden style apartments, and I feel like you could have changed the architecture a little bit more. So can you speak to that?
Of course, and I'll let Mr. Olson jump in here too, but the short answer is that we did. We had a planted space on Fairfax Drive. We had more of a recessed building form on Fairfax Drive. The area plan also calls for an urban edge on Fairfax. So you have to build to the build to line on Fairfax and then have that step at the 4th floor or somewhere around that. Really where that green planted setback could feasibly then come in is on either side, where it is going to be interrupted by building functions, loading or parking. We looked at putting both loading and parking on one side, the 2 curb cuts together on a small sloped site. Remember, they're going right downhill there. Was unsafe, not ideal for anybody. And then of course you have the transformers, so it interrupts it. Mr. Olson, I don't know if you wanted to mention anything else about how we laid things out.
Yeah, that's correct. We did have green space on Fairfax Drive. In fact, the 4th floor green space that we have now basically came all the way down to the ground floor. And there's many competing requirements in the plan. And one of them is for this continuous street wall along Fairfax, which, as you point out, makes it difficult to mimic the garden apartment aesthetic, at least along Fairfax, because we're providing a continuous street wall. So we ultimately remove that at staff's request. I mean, I think Peter's analysis was very fair. We're trying to balance a lot of things in this plan, one of which is this private open space requirement, which we've attempted to provide, albeit not as much as staff would like, but we have attempted to provide that. And meanwhile, we're meeting all of the other area plan requirements.
Thank you. Commissioner Berkey.
Look, I have like a zoning question. Is that appropriate here? Sure. I'm going to go for it. Okay. All right. So I'll take that as a yes.
I'm happy to.
So, and this is probably for Mr. Schultz, but I mean, for staff, but weigh in as well if you'd like to, Mr. Cummings. So clearly from the outset, we had a situation where the applicant is making best efforts here to comply with kind of most of what's in the relevant plan here, but we have this tension. We have this one aspect that is where you're not going to be able to comply and you want to move forward. Why didn't we consider something like a special GLUP or some other vehicle as opposed to being in a situation where staff is recommending denial, which, to be fair, I don't think we really want to be in that situation. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but I'm just curious how did we get here versus maybe like another planning process?
That's a question for the applicant because special GLUB studies come at the applicant's initiative.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's on us to make a request. I can start off by saying I want to be really fair to staff in this conversation. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth or anything. There's been different reviewers even on this case over the years. Josh and I have been kind of the consistent factor on it for at least 4 years now. We had differing feedback early on. And again, staff give you informal feedback. Sometimes it's, they're not tied to it. They can always change their minds. But I had a strong feeling that something more like what we presented today could have worked in the past, certainly. I had the same conversation with a board member recently. If I knew this was going to take 4 years, A, Josh, I don't think would have even done it in the first place, but B, we could have asked for the plan to be amended, and it may well have been. That can take a couple of years. It is very expensive and difficult to do in the sense of just process. So, it was a choice that we made early on, but it was a choice that we felt was justified. And then certainly as even 2 years ago when we brought this back, we thought we'd be able to work this out. And we weren't able to, but at the end of the day, we also know, we can still make our case.
Thank you.
My understanding also from talking to staff is that because the area plan is written in such a strong way that even if there was a special GLUB study, there wouldn't necessarily have been sufficient reason to say that an alternative would be appropriate.
I mean, I think the applicant certainly has identified a compelling rationale for, exploring modifications, right? And that's sort of the question that looms over, this proposal to both the commission as well as the county board, which is essentially, does this plan, which is fairly prescriptive as been described, is it congruent with a reality of how a development for such a site may occur? And so we have compelling justification on one hand of we have these plans, we need to stick with them, we have expectations for our applicants. On the other hand, this is my view, we have we have to think about our comp plan and the goals of that and making sure that we, do have a vibrant community, that, we do provide more housing, affordable housing, that sort of thing, and not be so wed to a plan which is, 17 years old in a different economic climate. And so how do we, I think we're going to have differing opinions about that, but that's sort of how I see the conversation.
Thank you, Commissioner Berkey. Commissioner Patel?
Thank you. I think, frankly, I think we thought we were going to be having a lot of conversation on this, but the problem is we are stuck with the plan that we have. And what we colloquially say on this dais and has been said, since every single person has been on here, is that we're the keepers of the plan. And so we're stuck behind, as whether we agree that this is a good project or not. I can personally say I believe it's a good project. I like the project, but I'm now stuck in a position saying, I don't think I'm permitted to say that I would. Sure, I'm not. I don't believe that I could say I would override the recommendation of what staff is saying here. I think that conversation really now just takes you to the county board and asks the county board to say it's fine, it's compliant, or we are waiving something or whatever it is, because I agree with Commissioner Berkey. I think that there is a compelling argument that's being made. I think that the actual project I am appreciative of, especially the committed affordable housing units. I do like the design of it. And I think that you probably might hear a lot from the commissioners here saying, hey, we like it, but we're stuck. And so, I know you want to respond to that. I don't know if there needs to be a response necessarily, and I appreciate the position you are in 4 years down the line, but
If I may, I would be thrilled if the Planning Commission decided that it was appropriate to, you're an advisory commission, right? If you recommended to the county board that you think that everything else in this project is pretty good, and you think that they need to make a decision about what to do with this plan, which I think is quite frankly broken in the sense of in modern conditions, it doesn't function, right? To me, it's almost like if you had a planned open space that was actually on some sort of surface that could never support an open space, like we deviate from those recommendations and get around them, right? There's ways to fix that. The board unquestionably has the legal authority to approve this. They can easily find that it complies enough with the area plan, certainly. And obviously we provided, like I said, a 21-foot planted setback, et cetera, respecting Mr. Schultz's analysis, of course. But if you were to make that recommendation, I think that, we feel like that's fair enough. I do think that as the planning commission, you have the ability to say on a more holistic basis what you think. You can certainly balance different goals in a plan. There are policy documents, but I'm not going to push you any harder than that. I don't want to try to tell you how to do your job that you quite frankly take very seriously.
I just wanted to add, I was surprised at how prescriptive the plan is, and the idea that, like, a lot of times when we see examples in policy guidance, they're examples and they're not necessarily like, these are the instructions. So I was surprised that when, we had alternative A and alternative B, well, alternative A was taken off the table. So therefore we have to do alternative B. Like, usually we don't kind of say, this is your option, take it or leave it. It's more like, this is a way that you could do it. If you have other creative ideas, we can consider those. So I'd love staff's response to that.
Staff has to evaluate the application in front of them. The applicant, I assume, thought of many other different ways of providing the kind of open space that the plan calls for on private spaces. What we've resulted with that is in front of you now, staff does not feel it meets that, but it's not that staff wouldn't welcome. As we said, there is no target size. We were even open to different placements, but the plan's pretty clear. It needs to be ground level. It's got to have canopy trees. It doesn't have to look like a 1930s apartment building, but obviously the plan is calling for something a little more than what we're getting here. So that is what staff is evaluating.
Thank you. And very fair points that you all are making. Commissioner Lantelmi, then Commissioner Guevara, then Commissioner Steinberger.
Yeah, I think one thing was touched on by the public speakers is that this could very end up being an orphan site. And that was sort of locked in when Wesley built its building and left this one parcel unbuilt, undeveloped. We have that in other areas of the county too, where we have orphan sites. And I think this is something we really need to be thinking about when we do plans, but that's for another day. For me, it comes down to the area plan ultimately is guidance. It may be highly prescriptive. It may say all things like must and shall and will, but it is ultimately guidance. It's not the ordinance. And staff is correct in making their call the way they did. That's their job. And I have no argument with that. If I was staff, I might be doing the same thing. However, our role is different. As Planning Commission, we're here to identify where there are competing priorities in looking to comply with the area plan and the comprehensive plan, both, not just the area plan. Our role is then to apply our best judgment in determining where those priorities go. And my judgment here is that the advantages of this project and where it will more than outweigh the deviations from the area plan. That lack of open space as contemplated, it's bad. I'm sorry we aren't going to be getting all of that, but ultimately we are getting huge amounts of improvements here that it won't end up being an orphan site. I am now comfortable that the economics favoring stick over concrete are real. We've seen how many projects over the past 3-4 years where the developer, the applicant came forward and did not either meet the ultimate height that was allowed or the density that was allowed in order to build like this. And we've commented on every one of those projects, and they went through as they did without the height or the density that will otherwise be allowed by either the zoning ordinance or those area plans or sector plans. That's reality that we're dealing with now. The current use right now, it's a drag on the neighborhood. Again, as we've heard from Ray Pham, it's going to be that way. If we deny this, if the county board denies this application, it's going to look like that for at least 3 years. If somebody tomorrow started from scratch it would be at least 3 years before it became anything. More likely, the flaws in this particular site exist, and that's not going to change. It's going to be what it is now for the foreseeable future. It's a drag on the neighborhood. It's a drag on the county. It's not providing anything for anybody. We need more housing. We need more affordable housing. And I think that outweighs that reduced open space that area plan calls for. Right now, the Fairfax Drive pedestrian environment is god awful. When I first moved to this area, for 3 years, I walked in front of that site every day getting to the metro. And it's the best way to walk from Ray Farm to get to the Roslyn Metro with the least hills of any place in Ray Farm. Yet it's the worst, ugliest, most pedestrian, unfriendly path you can possibly have. This improves that tremendously, as will Red Lion. But for decades, it hasn't been improved. Even if we approve this, and let's say construction does not start, and it still stays the way it is, remember, the law has been changed in Richmond that they will then have to come back to renew that site plan. And we will get a second crack at the apple that we could then, if economics change, we could say, you have to go higher. You have to go to concrete and steel if the economics have changed, because we will have that right as a county to go back and have that site plan come back through this entire process. So, basically, looking at all this, I don't feel that what actually is not even going to be public open space, it's an amenity for the tenants as a practical matter. I think I'd rather have more units there and have units there than have an extra 10 feet or so of open space from what is already being provided, which, by the way, is on a slope. It's up against 11 lanes of traffic. It's not exactly a place you're going to want to sit and read. So I'd rather have the units rather than have the open space. And as you can tell, I guess I'm not going to be voting in favor of a denial. Thank you.
Commissioner Guevara.
I'd like to associate myself with what Commissioner Lentelme said, particularly given the considerations that it's a slope site, that excavating it is very difficult. And while, of course, there's competing interests, right? We previously saw the previous applicant, it was 14 stories and they had 20 affordable units. This is 8 stories and you have 13. I think to me that indicates a lot of progress, relatively, of course. But, it's better than having no units as the current existing conditions. I also take into consideration, right? You said 4,600 for a 1-bedroom in that site. I mean, realistically, that's not. And if the point of actually making Arlington more affordable, at both ends of the spectrum, that I think we need to be realistic against those changes. One of the things my colleague here mentioned was, I wasn't sure if we could go against sort of what staff was suggesting. And I think that to a certain extent, I mean, our role here, and this is more philosophical, is to actually take into consideration all the different factors. And if we're just going to go with what staff is saying, then what is really our role here? I think sometimes oh, sorry. Yes. But anyway, with the recommendation, I just want to say I think I will not be voting for denial.
Thank you, Commissioner Steinberger.
I think this is a really tough situation. I think that what we're seeing has been alluded to is that when you have a plan that is at this point pushing 2 decades old, and you're trying to wedge the current environment for construction and development into, the constructs of a plan of that age, it's not going to be a perfect fit. I want to align myself with the comments of both Commissioner Patel and Commissioner Lentelme, because I think that the role we have as planning commissioners is constrained the way that Commissioner Patel laid it out, But I also think that this is a valuable development project and a lot of good here that I understand why staff is making the recommendation that they are. I do ultimately feel like this is for the county board to weigh in on and say, this is what we want to prioritize. We want more units. We want more affordability. We want those things at the air quotes expense of more open space that is dictated by the plan otherwise. But I don't know that I view my role as a member of the planning commission to be able to force that and say to make that judgment call for the county board. And they get the funness of, being the electeds, so they can sort of take that under their mantle. We do not have that role. Speak for myself. I do not feel that is not the role that I have as a planning commissioner on this body. And that's just a very tough thing to weigh. At the end of the day, I sort of hate all of my options here in terms of voting. So I'll make a game time decision.
Thank you. Commissioner Berkey.
A lot of very insightful things said. Yeah, I think I would just add a couple points. I do agree with Commissioner Lynn telling me that I think this is consistent with our role as keepers of the comprehensive plan. That we are supposed to evaluate these sector plans. We're not supposed to be, we're not supposed to look at these blindly and not consider context, right? And I think this is one of the situations where we have an applicant who has worked very hard and made a lot of changes to this proposal, right? I also want to give a shout out to our staff, because our staff are also guardians of our plans. We pass these, our county boards pass these plans, and then our staff, they work to make sure that, we said what we would do. And so I appreciate the role that you're playing here. But I agree with Commissioner Allen telling me, I think we play a different role. And as keepers of the comp plan, we do have to evaluate this context. And there may be occasions where we need to say this particular plan with these requirements is not congruent with the overall goals of our comprehensive plan, right? Which is to provide more housing, right? To provide, economic opportunity, right? To make sure that we don't have a lot that is, akin to the Keybridge Marriott, right? Not providing any value to the neighborhood, right? And I certainly agree with the sentiment that this lot probably would be unused, undeveloped, and undesirable for the foreseeable future, because I don't think anybody thinks that the conditions will change favorably in the next few years. And so I think for all those reasons more, I also would not support denial. I think really the move here is to recommend, the county board give this consideration. Thanks.
Commissioner Guevara.
I just want to make a quick note, irrespective of what the county board ultimately decides. I do want to sort of call out the developer's willingness to sort of make changes and actually work with the community. The fact that we have Stuart, someone whose opinion I really value, and community members who have shown up to actually show their support, I think that's really important.
Thank you. I do personally feel that as the Planning Commission, we are taking the comprehensive plan into consideration, and we're supposed to honor the area plan, which was a big process that was designed because the community really didn't like how the projects that were being proposed and built were changing the character of the neighborhood. Generally, I think neighborhood character is not something we talk a lot about on the commission. So the fact that there is an area plan that specifically is designed to protect a historic character of a neighborhood is unique. It's not something that I'm personally generally in favor of when it means that we're not getting affordable housing. And yet it is what it is. And in a different economic climate, it is likely that we could get everything that we're getting in this project and the green space. And this project does support the master transportation plan, affordable housing goals of the comprehensive plan. It gets us closer to our community energy plan. but it's not supportive of our forestry and natural resources plan in that we're not getting the open space. We're not going to be getting as many canopy trees as we might be able to get. So I don't think it is completely aligned. That said, a lot of our comprehensive plan elements compete with each other, so we do have to look at balance. I just personally feel that staff has made a very reasonable argument from a planning perspective about why this project doesn't meet all of the goals that it should. And I believe their position is that this maybe isn't feasible right now, but in the future, it very likely is. And then the community wins even more. I mean, I do really like this project. I think it's fantastic. We're getting a LEED Gold building. We're getting a lot of affordable housing units. We're getting transportation improvements and a bike trail improvement that I use that bike trail all the time. Like I would love to see this project develop, but I do feel conflicted that my role is to support the plan, the area plan, and possibly waiting a little bit longer could get us even more. I am often saying the perfect shouldn't be the enemy of the good. I do believe that generally. I'm very conflicted about this, but I do think it would be nice to have green space there.
Maybe to address one of your concerns, I hear the concern about we have these processes, we really should respect them. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, with the last agenda item, right? That was one of my rationales is we have a plan, we should stick to it. I think the difference here is, yeah, Commissioner Patel's like, you're such a hypocrite. No, I think the difference here really is context though, because we have a difference that just can't be, it can't be mitigated. It just can't be. The applicant is explaining why it can't be mitigated. But I think what I really wanted to point out was the fact that, you know, the neighborhood association, Mr. Amansky, am I getting that correctly, came here tonight, right, and is expressing their concern about what happens if this doesn't go forward. So even residents in the neighborhood are saying, like, we get that this plan exists, but also like, if this doesn't go forward, what's going to happen with this lot, right? And so I think that is something we also need to take into consideration.
I'd like to correct the record on Commissioner Berkey because where he was saying that he was wrong about how he voted in the last vote, because what his statement was on the public art master plan was incorrect. Anywho, in this particular situation, I would say to Madam Chair, it seems to me that there seems to be pretty much consensus. Oh, I don't know about what Commissioner Steinberger is saying, but there seems to be consensus amongst us that we actually are in favor of this project. Where we are struggling with is some of us are struggling with what our role would be here in this space around compliance with the area plan. So I wonder if there is an opportunity, as council has welcomed us to do. I know many of my colleagues will be voting yes for adoption, to recommend to the county board that they adopt the plan. I would actually ask that there be a separate motion allowing us to recommend to the county board that they revise the plan to allow for this project to proceed. Because I think, again, looking at my fellow commissioners, it seems that we agree that this plan is right and the community believes that it's right. So I just put that out there for my colleagues. I know that without that option, I would be abstaining because I do believe in the project. I just believe in my role as a commissioner is that I can't go around the area plan. So, and I'm happy for Mr. Pfeiffer to note that and allow me to vote that way. But I also just we could sit here all day and night arguing about what we can do and how we can do it. But we're always going to get to this place. And so I wonder if it's okay at almost 9:25 for us to just move forward on a vote, one way or another, about whether we would recommend that the county board adopt the sector plan to allow for this development project to proceed, or move forward just with staff's recommendations. And Mr. Schultz, we're always appreciative of your team's work and agree the things that you've said about its non-compliance with the plan. So,
following up on Commissioner Patel's proposal, I'd like to ask questions of staff, and this would be a legal question. Fortunately, we don't have the county attorney here. Are we correct that the county board has the authority, the ability to, let's say, override what the area plan says and go forward and approve this if they so choose?
Yes, they don't need to do anything special with the sector plan or amend the zoning ordinance or initiate a study to approve this. They could just say, thank you, staff, we disagree.
I mean, that's what I thought, which is why I think that we as a body have the ability to recommend to them that they do that, even despite or even if what we say isn't totally congruent with what the area plan says. We routinely look at sector plans and apply when we get an application for a site plan. We'll look at the sector plan, and often there'll be modifications that will go an extra story higher, or we'll have a little bit less coverage for this or that. We routinely do that, and it's completely normal and expected. The county board is looking to us for our recommendation to what they should do. Given what I'm hearing we feel here, we have that ability to say that, yes, the area plan says X, we think that it is better that we go Y, and we believe that you should do that too. So I think we have the ability to do that without having to recommend any changes to the ordinance or the sector plan.
Commissioner Steinberger.
Tell me if I'm speaking out of turn. I understand that this is a challenging issue, and we're hearing from a lot, I'm still conflicted. I think others are still conflicted. Some folks are not conflicted, but are maybe also not the word I was going to use, not necessarily in full alignment with maybe what some of the roles and expectations are for planning commissioners. My question is, I understand that there's been maybe some thoughts on other sorts of motions that could be made in terms of our recommendations and sense of the commission. I think Commissioner Peterson, maybe you had thoughts on something. I think in the context in which your thoughts were presented, it would be if the staff's recommendation for denial passes. So if the plan is denied, I would make the suggestion that whether or not the plan passes or not, that the motion as you have put forth, there is benefit to putting forth something that is the sense of this body on what we would like to see, whether or not, because I think it's important for the county board to understand the perspective we're coming from. And I think that's valid background. Commissioner Guevara will do an excellent job representing us before the county board this month, but I think having that additional motion in place for her to speak to and to say this is truly the sense of this body is beneficial. So I would argue that win, lose, or draw, whatever happens with the motions in front of us as recommended by staff or not, we still give the county board something of our sense of where we feel we're at to explain how we got there.
Okay.
I would argue that that is an appropriate motion to make first, actually.
Okay,
I agree
so
with Commissioner Patel on that.
I will share the motion since I emailed it to you earlier, but just since you all may not have been checking your PC email, the sense of the commission. So I have this motion that I'll read that kind of addresses the conflict that some of us may have with ignoring some of the very crucial elements of the area plan. So I will read it just for our consideration. It is the sense of the Commission that the project is not aligned with the critical elements of the Fort Myer Heights North Plan, which gives great priority to historic building form and associated green space with canopy trees. 2, the project would be an improvement on the status quo. 3, the applicant has been very responsive during the site plan process. 4, the project has the support of the Civic Association. And 5, the project would provide important community benefits in a timeframe much sooner than any alternative, including housing units near public transportation, on-site affordable housing units, an attractive LEED Gold building, a biophilic building, transportation improvements, and some historic preservation elements. So we could do that motion as a sense of the Commission.
You did, I think.
I emailed it like
I never got it.
half an hour ago.
Okay, I'm trying to pull it up because I'd like to read it.
I CC'd staff to it, so and actually I did make some little tweaks as presentations were going on.
I'll email it to him.
He has my phone.
Well, here, if I can send it to, yeah.
Who's in charge of that?
Mr. Pfeiffer, can I send it to you?
Sure.
Okay. Apologies if there are typos.
It's okay, we'll find them.
I know you will.
She apologized if there are typos. I said, don't worry, we'll find them.
Chair Peterson, so I do have an email from you with the motion, but you're saying that there is updated language?
I added the note about the Civic Association supporting the project after hearing their public comment. So I did just send another version. So to me, this communicates to staff, or to the county board, I should say, that the conflict of, we acknowledge that what staff is making, the reason staff is denying this project is because there are really important elements of the Fort Myer Heights North Plan that are being disregarded. Like when we look at sector plans, we do sometimes choose like, okay, the step backs here, we don't think those are appropriate. The the location of some green space, we can have some wiggle room there. But for this plan, this is like some of the most significant parts of the plan and the entire purpose for the plan being created in the first place, which is why I feel uncomfortable about this, even though I do really like this project. So the sense of the Commission lets the county board know from me, I'm not necessarily comfortable saying ignore the critical elements of a plan, but I do like this project a lot, and it is a very reasonable project, and the applicant has been very accommodating, and it does get us a lot. Commissioner Steinberger.
Are you very wedded to the bullet you added about the Civic Association support?
No.
Okay, I don't necessarily view that as something that we necessarily take into account one way or the other as we make recommendations to the county board, and I don't want that to somehow be taken as a litmus test. I am very glad that Rayfom is supportive of the project. I just don't want to accidentally create some sort of a litmus test that we're going to feel like we need to be responsive to going forward.
And would encourage Gray Farm to go to the county board meeting.
Yeah, please go talk to them. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, happy to strike that if the.
Number 3 for me, I think that's kind of expected, is that the applicant is going to be responsive during the site plan process. But let me just say one thing. I completely appreciated your presentation today because time and time again at SPRC, at LRPC, at Planning Commission, we have counsel who comes in here and gives us 7 minutes of the very same presentation staff has just provided. And you did not do that. And I have been sitting here on this dais for I don't know how many years, and you are the very first attorney who has listened after time limits and everything and said, use your time wisely, and you did. So thank you for that. But number 3, I think, is unnecessary because I think that's the whole reason why we have SPRCs, is the applicant is supposed to be responsive to the process and community input. I just would like to beef up number 2, which is the project would be an improvement on the status quo, and specifically say, explain that particular site is not functioning. I mean, there's nothing, there's no actual use of that particular property. And, you know, it's not disputed that without this particular development, there's no clear path to new development in the foreseeable future.
Just piggybacking on what you said with regards to item 2, could we say something to the effect, if this gets to what you're going through, I'm just thinking on the spot, the project would be an improvement over the status quo, which is currently a non-beneficial, non-functioning site without
A foreseeable use absent this this development project. Did you get that, Mr.?
Yeah, Mr. Pfeiffer, can you pull up maybe? Yeah, okay.
Could you repeat that, Commissioner Steinberg?
Can I repeat that? Probably not.
The project would be an improvement over the status quo, which is a non-functional,
Non-functioning, non-utilized
unutilized.
Unutilized site without meaningful contribution to the neighborhood.
Without meaningful contribution to the neighborhood, additionally, period, additionally, comma.
Sure.
Additionally, comma. Absent this development plan, there appears to be no additional plans for improvement
there
on the
wouldn't
site.
be, because we're considering this one, so they wouldn't have a backup option.
They've been sitting on it for 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to speak to the existing site. It is fenced off. It is currently being used, well, it was being used to stage construction for Red Lion until the contractor realized they needed a use permit. That's in front of the county board this month as well, which is hilarious. There's graffiti. Kids have been climbing it. I've spoken to detectives who are calling saying, I'm trying to find somebody, blah, blah, blah. I mean, JBG has done what they can to secure the site. There's a big fence around it, but it is a blight. It is completely
It's an
vacant.
attractive nuisance as well.
It is. And the next thing you'll see, and I have literally said the Keybridge Marriott example in private with multiple board members, other stakeholders, et cetera. That's exactly what the risk is here.
Yeah.
And having a lot of experience with that site too. These hotels, they can attract people because there's stuff in there that's.
Right.
Yeah. Can we say additionally, absent this development plan, there appears to be no feasible alternative for development?
Yeah, feasible is the right word.
Do we?
Instead of
Do we
additional.
know that?
I mean, if we believe 3 years of people saying steel construction isn't viable in this economy.
Maybe we should associate that with feasibility being related to on a whatever reasonable time frame. Maybe that's the associated element.
For the foreseeable future.
For the foreseeable future, yeah.
Yeah.
For development, for the foreseeable period, or after a development for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
There
So
we
what
go.
are we deleting?
Number 3
We're deleting number 3 and number 4.
and number 4.
Okay. Could you show us that, Mr. Pfeiffer? Thank you. Oh, something happened.
He's dropping this.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got 3 points that we're making.
So now you just need to do it.
Okay, so I will do my motion.
Okay.
Colleagues, I recommend that we make the following sense.
Grammatically, I think it needs like a colon.
Oh my
What's going
God.
on here?
Please.
So, okay, fine. I said I'd help. Never mind. Leave it alone.
Colleagues, I have a motion. It is to recommend to the county board that it is the sense of the commission that 1, the project is not aligned with the critical elements of the Fort Myer Heights North Plan, which gives great priority to historic building form and associated green space with canopy trees. 2, the project would be an improvement on the status quo, which is a non-functioning, unutilized site without meaningful contribution to the neighborhood. Additionally, absent this development plan, there appears to be no feasible plans for development for the foreseeable future. And 3, the project would provide important community benefits in a timeframe much sooner than any alternative, including housing units near public transportation, on-site affordable housing units, an attractive LEED Gold building, a biophilic building, transportation improvements, and some historic preservation elements. Seconded by Commissioner Patel. Any discussion on the motion? None. Okay, we're going to a vote. Commissioner Lantelmi.
Aye.
Commissioner Patel.
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger.
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley.
Abstain.
Commissioner Guevara.
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey.
Aye.
And Commissioner Peterson says aye, so that passes. Okay, so we still need to address the three main motions.
Those motions,
Which ones?
the recommendation by staff.
Well, yeah, okay. Oh yes, Commissioner Bagley has, oh.
Commissioner
okay.
Patel, did you mean the alternative motion sent by Commissioner Lantelmi, or did you mean staff's recommended?
Staffs, please. Thank you.
Commissioner Bagley does have additional questions on the agenda items. I thought we had kind of like blended them all together, but I apologize that I have.
That's okay. I'm assuming that we do have common milkweed in the plan for the vegetation.
We sure better. Mr. Krebs, how are
We
doing?
do. We do.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, and also
Let's get
regarding
the project.
regarding the cultivars, could we revisit that?
What was that, Commissioner Bagley?
The cultivars, could you revisit that?
Yeah, Mr.
And-
Judd from Studio 39 is on the phone.
Yes.
Here, sir.
We can take, yes, I am. We can take a look at that, definitely.
Thank you, because he's right about that. And also the trees that you have, I'm assuming they will be native,
Yes.
and will
And
they
we-
be shade trees?
There'll be a combination of shade trees and ornamental trees. We worked with the county arborist for urban forestry with selection of all these trees. So they are they're comfortable with the trees we've chosen in all the locations.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So Commissioner Patel, you had.
Okay, so the Planning Commission recommends that the county board deny application REZ N 25-00003 to rezone an approximately 3,000 square foot portion of Fairfax Drive right away proposed to be vacated. However, should the county board approve REZ N 25-00003, approval should be subject to the attached rezoning ordinance.
Second, Eric?
Second. Sure.
Okay, Commissioner Berkey seconds. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, Commissioner Lantelmi,
Nay.
Commissioner Patel,
Abstain.
Commissioner Steinberger,
Abstain.
guys. Commissioner Bagley,
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara,
Abstain.
Commissioner Berkey,
Nay.
and I will say aye. So
The motion wins.
wait, yeah, we have 2 nays, 2 ayes.
No, you have.
Commissioner Bagley, no, wait, you abstained. Sorry, wait. You said aye. Okay, yeah. So we have,
You said
I said aye. So we have
Yes,
2
yes,
ayes
the motion
and
fails.
2 no, so it fails. Okay,
Okay, second motion.
okay, second motion.
Okay, but
It's
you have a double negative now because it was a recommendation to deny.
Yeah, so now we haven't done anything. So we haven't approved it. Do
right. The motion's failed.
you want to do your approval
Yeah.
motion?
Yeah, I would love to.
I'm super confused.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
We did not approve denying the project.
We did not. No. We did not.
No,
No.
we just didn't.
There is no, there, nothing exists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you throw my habit, my motion? Yeah.
But at some point tonight, we're going to get to the finding, Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, do you want to do the finding?
Yeah,
Because that's,
Okay, I can read
okay.
it.
Yeah, let's not forget that, please. I think that we do need to do
here
that
goes.
as the planning commission legally.
Okay, and you already have it. I move that the planning commission find that the attached ordinance to vacate a portion, wait, hold on.
That's not your motion, that's the finding, but we can
Yeah,
move
you can
forward
just
with the
read what's on
finding.
the screen. Somebody read what's on the screen.
Okay, I move that the planning commission find that the proposed ordinance to vacate, one, a portion of the existing easement for public sidewalk, utilities and drainage purposes on a portion of the property owned by 1601 Fairfax Drive LLC located at 1601 Fairfax Drive, identified as RPC number 17-027-008, and two, a portion of Fairfax Drive right-of-way abutting the southern boundary of the parcel identified above, all with conditions and all related to site plan number 471 located at 1601 Fairfax Drive are substantially in accord with the adopted comprehensive plan or applicable part thereof.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Lantelmi. And any discussion? No? Okay, we're going
No.
Commissioner Lantelmi.
Okay, which one, wait, which one are we on?
This is just the finding.
The
that we have to
finding.
do.
The finding for the vacation?
Yes.
Yes,
Aye.
which staff supported.
Yeah.
Yes, and TC supported.
Hmm?
TC supported, yes, okay. Commissioner Lantelmi, you said aye. Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley?
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara?
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey?
Aye.
And I also say aye, so that passes unanimously.
Okay, I can read the motion for the rezoning.
Okay.
I move that the planning commission recommend that the county board approve application REZN 25-00003 to rezone an approximately 3,000 square foot portion of Fairfax Drive right of way proposed to be vacated subject to the attached rezoning ordinance.
Second, who's seconding? Commissioner Berkey, you want a second? This is supporting the project.
It's simply rezoning that little portion we just vacated.
Okay. Okay. So we're now supporting the project. That's the motion on the table.
Yeah, we're supporting, yes. We're
Yes. So
supporting
if you support the
rezoning.
project, you
Wait,
vote.
we haven't gotten yet to the site plan itself.
Yeah,
This is just the rezoning.
Yeah, supporting, saying you have to support the zoning if you support the project.
Right.
Okay.
You could rezone anyway.
You can
rezone
rezone.
anyway.
It would have to get done if they
It'll have
did
to
it
happen no
differently in the
matter what.
future. Okay. Commissioner Lantelmi.
Aye.
Commissioner Patel.
Abstain.
Commissioner Steinberger.
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley.
Abstain.
Commissioner Guevara.
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey.
Aye.
Okay. I will say aye. Okay, so that passes unanimously.
No, there were two abstentions.
Wait.
Yeah, but the abstains are
this
just
abstains
the-
don't count.
There was no negative.
You're
There
not
was no no.
considered anymore if you abstain.
I'm just,
Okay, okay, now the big one.
Okay.
I move that the planning commission recommend that the county board approve an application for a new site plan, SPLN 22-00010, SP number 471, to permit the construction of an 8-story multifamily building with up to 141 dwelling units with modifications of use regulations for additional density, reduced residential parking ratio, one-way drive aisle width, density exclusions, and other modifications necessary to achieve the proposed development, located at 1601 Fairfax Drive and a portion of Fairfax Drive proposed to be vacated, RPC number 17-027-008, subject to the attached site plan ordinance and conditions of approval.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Berkey. I don't think we need any discussion, so. Oh,
I just have a question because this one is saying with modifications, the use of regulations for additional density. I thought for those of us who agreed that we wouldn't to abide by the additional density requirement.
In order to approve it, you got to approve the additional density. Otherwise, they're limited to 1.65 FAR or, yeah.
okay, Commissioner Lantelmi.
Aye.
Commissioner Patel.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, Commissioner Steinberger.
Abstain.
Commissioner Bagley.
Nay.
Commissioner Guevara. Commissioner Berkey.
Aye.
Okay, and I will very, very regretfully say nay for all the reasons we discussed before. But so that does pass 3-2. So the Planning Commission has approved the project.
And may I just go on the record, Mr. Pfeiffer, for the reason why I abstained?
You may.
Thank you very much. I just like the record to reflect my position on abstaining is because I just believe that after our negative, the rest should have just gone to the county board. I don't think that we should have taken any further action on the matter.
And I would like to note that this vote should not be taken by staff as a lack of confidence in your abilities, your competence, or your opinions. As I said, when I was going through my whole discussion earlier on, if I was staff, I could very well have made exactly the same recommendation you did. You are supposed to be following the sector plans, the area plans. So I have no argument whatsoever with how you approach this. We just have a different role. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Bagley.
I would just like to add that, at least from my observation versus a civic association president, then as a planning commissioner, that I don't think that staff really has the ability to have an opinion often. The reality is that they are prescribed with the plans. They have to go through, they have to look and see how they hold up against everything that comes across their desk. And I think this is a common misconception amongst the public and everybody else. Staff may have some really profound opinions, but it's not within their purview to give them. So thank you.
I do want, yes, Commissioner Steinberger.
I'd like to align myself with the comments of both Commissioners Patel and Commissioners Lantelmi. I appreciate the work that staff has put in on this. I think, as Commissioner Lantelmi illustrated, the roles are different, and my abstention was a reflection of the fact that what I understand my position as a planning commissioner to be is constrained in terms of the actions I could take on this particular item. I am grateful to this body for taking Commissioner Peterson's motion first so that we could get a sense of where we stand to the planning. Nope, we're the planning commission, to the county board, and they would have greater insight into where we are approaching this from. Thank you.
Thank you very much to staff for all of the work that you did. It was very helpful. Thank you to the applicant for your work on this site and all of the effort that you put in through the SPRC process. Thank you to our public commenters, both virtual and in person, for being here tonight, for being involved in the process, for helping make your community better every day. So that concludes this item. And now I will turn to Madam Clerk for our commission business, which we will go through very quickly. We're doing unanimous consent, guys.
So we're going to do the approval. If someone could, unanimously consent to the July 7, 9, and 10 meeting minutes.
I seek unanimous consent for approval of the July 7, 9, and 10 meeting minutes of the Planning Commission.
So moved.
Thank you.
And we have two rosters.
Mr. Pfeiffer, you have any planning division updates?
No planning division updates. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Pfeiffer.
And we now have the two rosters. I can put them up on the screen if you like.
Yes, we have two rosters, one of which I have made an amendment to, which I will put up on the screen for us all to see. Let's see. Bear with me.
He's gonna like me.
Here you go, Matt.
Okay, colleagues, I seek your unanimous consent to approve the roster for the 2847 Wilson Boulevard Special GLEP study.
I have no objection to the roster. I just want to correct my email address on it to Devanshi Patel Arlington @gmail.com.
Okay, yes.
Thank
Can you update that? So do I have unanimous consent?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And can we see the second one? Is it also a new roster or is it an amendment?
This is a new roster. Sorry, Dia, to steal your thunder, but this is a new roster for an UCMUD project. So it.
And Commissioner Ware is still on here.
Yes.
I made an amendment to take
Keep 'em.
Commissioner Weir off. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Giselle, I think you would put the one up that I sent you last night. I've since made an amendment to remove Commissioner Weir from that roster.
As much as you want him to be here, we all do too.
We do want him to.
Okay, so colleagues, I ask for your unanimous consent to approve. Can you scroll up to the top of the screen, please, so I can read to approve the lockup self-storage UCMUD review committee membership roster.
With one amendment.
With one amendment to remove our former Commissioner Daniel Weir, who left the commission in July. Okay, yep, so moved. Okay, please email any updates if you are on a subcommittee. Otherwise, can I gavel us out?
Please do.
Oh.
We will be having, for this particular interesting project, which should be just one meeting, it is September 18th at 7 o'clock. So please do join us for that. It's kind of an interesting one.
All right, thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.